pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia, 1950, as amended, requires certification by the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Stafford County School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, and considered.
Second. Would you second?
Yep. Madam Clerk, will you poll the board, please?
Ms. Egan?
Agreed.
Ms. Fallon? Agreed. Ms. Hazard?
Agreed.
Ms. Healy? Agree. Mr. Hirons? Ms. Kidby? Agree. Mr. McOsker? Madam, your motion passes unanimously.
Are there any motions out of closed session?
Madam Chair, I'm going to have two motions.
Okay.
The first of which, I move that the school board authorize release of the interim report of the school board authorized forensic audit entitled Forensic Review of FY 13, identifying positions in lieu of employee names, and that be authorized to be released tomorrow, pending the conclusion of the forensic investigation.
Do I have a
That
second?
makes sense?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Hirons, do you have a second motion?
My second motion is I move that the school board direct our council to continue the forensic audit by completing the forensic review of FY 13 and to prepare an additional forensic audit report for FY 14 and authorize the expenditure to not exceed an amount of $75,000.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on, we are out of closed session and have received motions. I would ask for all those in the audience and for us to rise for a moment of silence and reflection. We will have our colors presented by the Stafford High School Navy JROTC.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Colors. Right. Face. Upward. March.
You all may be seated. I'd like to thank our Stafford High School Navy JROTC that was commanded by Ensign Megan Hughes, and we had Petty Officer Yibzi Salinas and Tyler Phillip. It's always great to have our students here. Moving on to 5.03 and approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 6.01. I'm sorry, I have my pile here. Give me just a moment. I'd like to recognize Dr. Chris Quinn, Director of Instructional Services, for presentation of awards. Dr. Quinn.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chairman, school board members, and Dr. Benson. I'm so pleased to announce and congratulate. We have some recipients of the Rappahannock Rotary Education Foundation mini grant, and I have Fred Rankin. You step alongside me, sir, and I'd like to call each of the recipients up, each of the teachers. First of all, Hannah Kassenbaum, who's a teacher at Shirley Heim Middle School. She presented a grant called Science Research for English Language Learners.
Excellent.
And also, I'd like to recognize Christina Hanneman, who is a teacher at Hartwood Elementary School, who presented a mini grant for connecting students connect with Connects, which is KNEX, which is a project or a program where they build roller coasters and that kind of thing, and other kind of manipulatives and projects. Also, I would like to go ahead and announce Kathleen Mellenberg and Rebecca Cousins. Did they show up at some point? Oh, there you are. Please join us. And both of these teachers are teachers at Colonial Forge. They soar with the Eagles, and they presented a mini grant on inclusion cooking life skills. And they'll also receive some funds from Mr. Rankin and the Rappahannock Rotary Education Foundation. I'd also like to recognize those who couldn't be here tonight. Marcia Grigsby, who teaches at Kate Walter Barrett, and she presented a mini grant on Keep the Brain Stimulated. And then Heather Preble, who teaches at Stafford High School, she presented a service learning project on caring for the community. And then Francisca Futisha, also at Stafford High School, presented a mini grant on nutrition for adaptive PE. So we're very proud of these recipients, and I will let Mr. Rankin now present those and say what he would like to say.
Madam Chairman, member of the school board, my name is Fred Rankin. I'm delighted to be here tonight. I am a resident of Stafford County. I have 3 children. I'm a proud parent of 3 children who are graduates of the Stafford County Public School Systems, and I'm married to a wife who who is now a retired teacher from the Stafford County School Systems. So I live and breathe the various Stafford colors. And in my role as a member of the Rappahannock Rotary Club and a member soon to be the next chairman-elect of the Educational Foundation, it's indeed my pleasure to be here tonight to present these awards and monetary checks to these incredible teachers who are teaching our youth of today, who will be our leaders of tomorrow. The Rappahannock Rotary Club, Rotary in general, is a service organization, and one of its core missions is to support education of our youth around the world. And it is my absolute pleasure to recognize these fine teachers here tonight. So. Hannah Kassenbaum, I am proud to present you with a check for $250.
Ooh, nice.
And Christina Hanneman, I am proud to present you a check for $200 from the Rappahannock Rotary Club. And Kathleen Mellenberg and Rebecca Cousins, it's my pleasure to present you, and I hope I have this right. No, wait a minute here. Let me get the right check here. Here we go. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, right, okay. Thought I had it here.
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute here. Well, I'll give you your certificates, and I thought I had the checks here. You have. All right, okay. Then I gave you the wrong one. There it is, right there. Thank you. I'm sorry, and congratulations to all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for supporting our teachers in this way. We really, really appreciate it. Moving on, we will be having our proclamation regarding School Library Month. Ms. Egan will be reading this.
Okay, proclamation to designate April 2016 as School Library Month. Whereas the quest for knowledge by school students in Virginia is stimulated and developed through the use of educational resources and services provided by school library programs. And whereas school library programs access to wide variety of educational materials and information databases, as well as the technology needed to use these resources. And whereas school library programs provide learning activities designed to enhance reading motivation and establish the information literacy skills needed for lifelong learning. And whereas the full potential of school library programs is dependent upon trained professional school librarians whose varied skills assist teachers and students in effectively using this wide range of information resources. And whereas it is fitting that the special recognition be given to school library programs and the role of school librarians in education throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the school board on this 12th day of April 2016 that the school board hereby designates April 2016 as School Library Month at Stafford County Public Schools. The school board takes this opportunity to call upon all school administrators, teachers, students, and citizens of Stafford County to recognize and support this action and to participate throughout the month of April in celebration of School Library Month.
As many of you are aware, our libraries are under review, of course, in our schools, and Brook Point being a wonderful one
Absolutely.
that we have. And I'm looking forward to, as our libraries grow and expand with our Century Skills and other things like that. It's
Do we have
very
any
exciting.
here? Are there any here?
I don't know. Do
Do we have any librarians here tonight?
of our librarians?
Yay!
That's
Yeah,
right.
hold on. Well,
Thank you if
yes,
you're watching.
Mr. Hirons and I, we always say we wait for Christmas and then we wait for Library Month because we always get the best stuff.
That's right.
So this one says, Madam Chair, I know you were getting ready to say something. We are grateful for your commitment to our libraries. And so thank you very much, librarians. We love the mints.
And you know the way to our hearts is through
North Stafford,
sweets.
is it North Stafford approved yet?
We're getting there. All right, moving right along to our special presentation, 7.01, our project, our collaboration project, special presentation, Dr. Mira.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, school board members, Dr. Benson. As you might know, the Technology Department is leading the development and implementation of a project charter to determine the best instructional and administrative tools to support our strategic outlook as well as our C5W initiative. And in keeping with Mr. McCosker's bottom line up front, and for the next 3 minutes and 30 seconds, we've been working on the project charter for the last several months since late September, I'd say mid-September or mid-fall. It is in support of, as I said, our strategic plan and our C5W initiative. In addition to collaboration being a pillar of C5W, collaboration skills have been identified as a key skill for operating in the 21st century. So much so that in a recent study, sponsored by both public and private entities, employers ranked teamwork and collaboration as one of the three most important applied skills. This particular study looked at applied skills and academic skills. It's a study that I actually read, and in which 431 human resources managers said that teamwork and collaboration ranked only behind professionalism and work ethic as skills most important. And if you really personalize it, if each one of you personalizes the idea of collaboration and communication, and think about colleagues you've worked with for a second, and think about folks that you know, in both in the workforce and in public service, folks that struggle with these skills, communication, and are not able to collaborate, they usually kind of don't succeed as well. I'm sure you could all think about folks like that. So the idea behind this collaboration project is to ensure that we work on those skills both in the classroom as well as our work environment. To do that, we talked to all of these different stakeholder groups. And we wanted to kind of get out in front of the project charter and talk to some stakeholder groups to kind of formulate the direction we were going to take. So I personally talked to all these groups. Dr. Benson was part of the teacher advisory group. I talked to each of the principal groups at least two times, and I ended up talking to students also to get their take on where we should go with this. The consensus was that there are a multitude of tools available to enable the school community to leverage collaboration and learning and working environments. Our challenge is to identify those tools that fit Stafford's outlook. You hear Dr. Benson always talking about tools that fit what we need. So that's our goal, and that's what we're trying to do. The groups unanimously said that one of the first tools we should be able to use and employ and provide is division-sponsored email to our students. And the groups also came up with this tiered kind of look to providing that. We don't provide student email at the division level right now, although the high schools provide it on an individual basis to high school students, and they manage their own systems, which is kind of inefficient, really. So we're looking at providing fully functional email accounts to high school students. At the middle schools, the groups thought it would be very important to provide email to middle school students, but on kind of a limited basis. So we would provide email to the students, and they would have the ability to email other students and teachers within Stafford County Public Schools domain only. At the elementary level, they believe it was important for students to be exposed to email as the teacher might require, and give them email accounts, but those email accounts would only be provided such that they would email the teacher and back to the student as required. So the key milestones here, I'm not going to take you through the whole chart, but if you look at the left side there, the project initiation, we got through that. We got through the charter and the good draft of the charter. The cabinet is definitely in support of the project, and we did this part here. We've got stakeholder consensus, and the consensus was that the first product we should use should be a product that provides email capability. We're right here at this little yellow box here. We're giving you the brief right now, and what we'll do right after this is reestablish our stakeholder committee, reconvene, I would say, and then determine how we can garner even wider input on how we move forward with the collaboration platform and how we roll out email. And there would be multiple other little milestones and draft documents that would not be necessarily at the executive level, but at the detailed planning level. And we plan on moving through the decision, and the collaboration products right now that have email, the prominent ones are Google Apps for Education and Office 365. There might be others out there which the committee will look at and have to determine. And then we'll move forward with the design of the system and create accounts and do all these things required to make sure we have a successful implementation. On the bottom, there'll be concurrent effort to make sure we update any forms or policies, regulations that have to be done. Make sure we communicate what we're doing very clearly before we do it, and update our training. We'll also make sure our bandwidth is going to be able to provide support to what we're trying to do. And there'll be a training component, and it'll be a very deliberately planned rollout of whatever collaboration tool we choose. So the three key steps that we're going to move forward with are to reconvene that stakeholder committee and develop methodologies to garner wider input. and begin implementation planning for the platform and selection and provision of the email accounts, and then continue to analyze and adjust not only bandwidth, but any behind-the-wall requirements that we might need to get done. And that's pretty much the update that I wanted to give you.
Question?
I do.
Why don't you start?
Sure.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. It's always the ends, isn't it? So I was talking to my son the other day, and he wanted to be signed up for a baseball app, and I said, okay, do you have email? He said, yeah, I have email through school. So I was kind of excited. I thought this was part of that project. So he's at Stafford High School. So, and you mentioned in your presentation that some of the schools are doing some limited implementation, which I think is a great idea. You know, I think it's necessary in these times. So for the schools that are currently implementing something, is there going to be a seamless migration
Yes.
to?
There will definitely be a seamless migration.
Okay.
Because email is something we can't afford to mess up. It's a
Yeah.
basic service, and we're going to make sure we do it
So-
the right way.
In theory, they'll be able to retain their current email address that now they've, you know, I don't know how long Stafford High School.
Don't know that they'd be able to maintain their exact same email address, but certainly all their email would be available to them.
Okay.
Because if the division is going to establish and maintain a division-wide domain, it would probably be SCPS, mail@scps.net. Now, the high schools are all doing it independently.
Right.
Like I mentioned, which isn't super efficient.
It's
And
like
you have folks,
staffordhigh.org
you
or
have folks doing email management at schools that really should be doing other things.
Yeah.
Especially for students, because we have a lot of students,
Right.
so.
Okay. The second question I had was on your flow chart. It did say increase bandwidth.
Yes.
What's the methodology to increase bandwidth?
We have
In terms of funding.
the hardware installed to do that, and we're really in a great position to increase bandwidth because all it really takes is virtually a phone call to up what we have. In other words, we have the pipes,
Right.
and we have most of the equipment. You'll see an agenda item later on where we need wireless, a little bit of increased wireless stuff in the classroom. We've been working on this, Mr. Hirons, for a long time. We've been working to
Is
get
it-
to this point.
Is it included in the budget then? Because we increased bandwidth with that phone call.
Yes,
They're
it
gonna
is.
Say, okay.
The thing
here-
about bandwidth,
here's
too,
your-
is that as time goes on, bandwidth gets cheaper. So we're able to get more with really the same amount of money, unless we're buying it in bigger chunks. So yes, we've budgeted for it, and each year we've built the infrastructure, as I said, to get to this point. And I'm pretty confident we're going to be able to, we will be able to pull this off.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. McCosker?
So, good report. So, bottom line, so student email, high school fully functional email accounts, what's that mean to you?
That means in and out, like your email account is right now. You can email anybody in the world, anybody
outside the school,
anybody in the world can
inside
email
the
you.
school?
Yes, sir.
Middle school email to other .NET accounts in the school only, so that's
That's right.
internal.
That's
right?
internal only, in the domain.
In the domain.
Right.
Okay, so elementary, email to teacher only, what's that mean?
That means to between the student and the teacher. So that he's-
Elementary school.
Right, unless they want something else, and that's something we'll figure out during this is what the principals wanted to do first. Actually, this is what those stakeholders wanted to do first.
Yeah.
You could always loosen up the reins.
Okay.
And tighten them
I just
later.
wanted to, my concern, I guess, really is the elementary school teachers. All the teachers are on, 100 miles an hour through the school year.
Yes.
Elementary's on, maybe 105 miles an hour, right? And, I've got 4 kids in the system, and it's the parents take up a lot of time with the elementary school teachers, emailing back and forth. So that was just my initial concern when I read it, to have the student, hi, Mrs., which is sweet, but
Right, and this will be as necessary.
Okay.
They don't have to do it.
got it. Thanks.
Ms. Gibby?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. I noticed that one of those boxes is an opt-out box.
That's right.
So does that mean at all levels or certain levels, parental permission is required?
Well, if it's opt-out, it's going to assume that everybody's getting it, and those that want to can opt out. Now, we haven't really gotten that far in the
Okay.
whole process yet. That's just on there as a planning
Okay.
point, as a discussion point.
All right, I won't pursue that any further, but the other question I had to do with how the rollout, you're going to roll out to all 3 levels, all at the same time, all schools.
We might have to look at, if you look at the bottom here, implement school by school.
Okay.
We're going to have to really think about that. It's going to be a deliberate rollout. I can promise you that. It's not going to be
Okay,
it's going to be well thought out.
okay. That's all I need. Thanks.
Mrs. Healy?
My question was along the lines of Mrs. Kidby's. I want to make sure, since, most of our students are minors, that the minors' parents consent, to this. And just putting it in that, there's many, many forms that go out at the
Right.
beginning of the year, may not be enough. So I think we're going to need to have our public affairs office or something address this, because I think it is important that the parents consent to this, particularly at the level where it's going to be a full access to that email.
Yes, ma'am.
And this says in the student handbook, but we're also going to have to put it in the code of conduct as well. That's going to have to be
We'll
addressed.
review all of that and make sure, as it says right there, we'll review
Right, but-
and we'll make sure it's in the documents. it
Well,
needs to be in.
that's a good thing, but given the schedule here, I think the code of conduct comes to us significantly in advance of the start of the school year because of printing and distribution and everything else. So I think we need to make sure Mr. Nelson is, involved in that timing for that. I'm sure you'll enjoy working on that, Mr. Nelson. A new category to address.
Predecessor to this that would still exist, and not, of course, directly this would be included in the code of conduct, but the way we treat the acceptable use policy is by distributing it with other papers at the beginning of the year, and then there's a cover sheet, which is things that we understand that package.
Right, but, I'm always for full disclosure, and if there's going to be a penalty associated with an abuse or misuse, then I think parents and students need to be aware of that up front and not after the fact. So, thank you.
Ms. Egan, are you?
It's been covered.
It's been covered. Mine was exactly the same about the code of conduct impact and how we communicate. So I think those are
Okay.
things just to take back to the to your stakeholder groups and to the committees, that those are some questions raised by the board and parents exactly, which we serve both roles. So thank you very much. And
Okay.
any further? All right. Moving along to our program review of middle and high school programs, and that's going to be Dr. White and team, I believe. At all.
Okay. Well, good evening, Madam Chairman, school board members, and Dr. Benson. This evening, I'd like to introduce you to the long-awaited program review update, along with representative group of our principals and instructional department personnel, without whom the implementation of our various programs would not be possible. I'd like to start with, before I bring the middle school and high school up, with kind of our overarching orders with regard to providing a program at our middle and high schools that enhance efficiency and equity. And we talked about reducing travel costs between the schools during the day, allowing use of itinerant teachers in hard-to-staff areas, expand use of virtual delivery models, provide equity and access to middle school electives, enhance student opportunities for specialty programs, and reduce loss of instruction time for middle school students. And we began with this on last year so that we could implement it this current year. And we would like to give you the update of how things are going. And to begin that, I would like to invite Dr. Tammy Hanna and Dr. Andy Greider to come and present on the middle school programs.
Thank you, Dr. White. Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, Dr. Benson. Dr. Hanna and I are here to give you an update, if you will, on middle school scheduling. And Dr. White mentioned the things that we were tasked with doing initially by the board and by Dr. Benson. So one of the things that I think was clear from our presentation last year was this was a collaborative effort. The middle school principals had to work very hard to come to some agreement about what a common middle school schedule should be. And so I feel like that we did that. I feel like that all the middle school principals did a good job along with their staff members. And so we're very proud of the results that we've achieved thus far. So as you look at the bullets, the first thing is the dedicated block of literacy and math every day. Not all of our schools had that. Most of our schools did have that at that point in time. Now we all have that. An embedded, dedicated response to intervention through that extended English and math time. And then the third bullet down, our RTI time as captured through our intervention and enrichment time. And so that has been the biggest piece for most of our middle schools, has been the implementation of the intervention and enrichment time. And we'll get to some survey results later, but I think for the most part, I would say that it's been successful. We also did want to make sure that we had similar elective programs, access to geometry, and then of course all the middle schools offering Spanish language and then if possible other languages. So in terms of looking at determining effectiveness, I think any time that you implement something in its first year, it's really difficult to tease out those factors that might interact with what it is that you're looking for. So in terms of looking at benchmark data, STAR assessment results, and so on, it's hard to determine that our new schedule has really impacted those things at this point in time. We'd need at least another year, I think, before we could see in terms of student achievement results to see if there is an impact on achievement. We did, however, do survey with our students, with our parents, and with our staff, and we have those results, which we'll share with you in a little bit.
Good evening. I would like to just interject before I talk about intervention and enrichment, how much I appreciate the common schedule and how much central office has supported that. For the first time in 9 years at Drew Middle School, we had a chorus that's gone to all county and all district. And that's because we were able to have this common schedule across the board. So that has helped with the equity issue that I know came up repeatedly last year at your redistricting meeting. So thank you for that. That's right. That's right. We just have a few pictures of different things that are occurring in the buildings, and this could be anywhere in the building. And I think that the fun thing about the intervention and enrichment is that the teachers have a lot of say in which students that they're working with. And I know at Drew, I made a commitment to students that if you worked your hardest, if you needed an intervention, then we would make sure you got some type of enrichment that you wanted during the school year. And I think all the schools have done that, and our students have worked hard. And we are excited that we're at the point of the year where kids are asking to be in interventions. They are saying, I need a little bit extra help in math, or I need help in the civics blast. Can I go in there? And that's really good news for us, for middle school kids, that they're becoming accountable learners. So this just has a couple examples of different things, and we're going to kind of talk about some of those types of things that we're doing. The I&E program, Intervention Enrichment, different schools call it different names, but basically it varies by schools. There are some commonalities, but it depends a lot on your teacher's passions and talents. So I don't think it's very effective if I go and tell Dr. Greider he has to teach origami if he doesn't know how to do that. But if he has a special interest in that, the kids seem to capture that passion and they're able to do those classes and those enrichment opportunities. Some of the types of things that we have going on, we have Model UN and debate things that were sometimes occurring after school or during other classes that now occur during I&E. We have lots of STEM programs like robotics that you see up here, the Virginia Demonstration Project that sometimes was run through science classes and robotics. We have athletic activities. The kids love getting out and having kinesthetic activities. We've had things like floor hockey or leisure activities, basketball. And then we have a lot of hands-on things, which which really surprised us. Many schools offered calligraphy and cursive, and it was one of the kids' favorite things. They think that's a secret language, like how to read cursive writing. So they liked that. We did duct tape crafts, and they were amazed. There's a scholarship for like making prom dresses out of duct tape. I mean, there's money to be made there. Origami, stamping. One of the ones that kids really enjoy too is knitting. I've been very surprised, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But we also have lots of things going on, and it's interesting to come and talk to the kids. This is an example from Sea Perch, and we've been going around at our middle school meetings. Every month we go to a different school. So when we've been at Rodney Thompson, I'll ask the students about what they like about I&E. When we were at the other different schools, Shirley Heim, I was asking the students. But the funny thing is to talk to them, and they experiment, and it doesn't work, and you hear them brainstorming why, and then they go right back to the classroom and try to fix it. And then they say things like, oh, 30 minutes wasn't enough, we're going to have to fix this tomorrow. So they really are doing that, which I think dovetails nicely to what Dr. Mira just presented, which is the whole C5W. So in knitting, we've had some people, and there have been some teachers who say, it should all be academic. Like, why are they down there knitting? And in reality, when you look at the RTI model, you only have about 15% of your kids who need that intervention and probably 5% who need extensive intervention. So what do you do with the other 80 to 85% of students in a non-graded class to keep them on task to make sure that our teachers aren't running out of the door crazy? Well, we let them do things that they have passions and talents for, and they share that with the students. So for knitting, I have up here communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. And I'll just tell you how that came to be. I walked into the library and these kids were knitting, and I see these, and it's a boy and a couple of girls, and the one boy is knitting, and he has huge circles in his scarf, which is not going to keep you warm. The guy beside him has his so tightly wound he can't get the needle in on about the 5th row. And so the other kid's like, well, it can't be that tight, but it can't be that loose. So how are we going to measure it to get it to fit? And they're doing all of those skills. They're having conversations. They're predicting what they need to do, and then they're going back and fixing those. And even in our hands-on things, there's a lot of collaboration with students. You walk in the game activities and the card games, and they're teaching each other tricks and figuring out ways to manipulate the materials that they're working with. And sometimes those are things that they don't get to do in other times. The other story I just want to share is we had a salsa dancing. I wish I could have gotten down there because I need a little bit of help with that. I take wide steps, so I know I have long legs. That's a problem. But we had a young student who was in a bit of trouble, and he was going to be in in-school suspension, and he was going to miss I&E. And he begged Miss Ivory, who was with me at the time, can I please go to I&E? It's 30 minutes. I know I'm not supposed to get out. He said, but I'm the teacher's partner, and if I don't go, I don't know how she's going to demonstrate the next dance move. So for him, that was a motivation for him, and he's a student who is a student with disabilities who is never going to volunteer to go first to read aloud. He's never going to volunteer to solve a math problem, but for once, he was a student leader, and that's what we want to be able to see for our students. So moving forward, there are some things that we've realized have been challenges. We didn't really have a budgeted amount from the county to help support this, so we've all just been very creative. And we have realized that if we purchase things, we can share them among schools. So if I have a Connects kit and I use it during the first quarter, then someone else could use it during another quarter. So we are going to try to figure out ways to collaborate. We're still experimenting with implementation strategies, like how long, how do we sign students up for the different classes, that sort of thing. It is difficult to implement with a shared part-time math specialist, so thank you for your work to help alleviate that in the future, because we do need them to help us actively form our RTI groups, and they are a critical part of that team. And then we want to make sure that we're offering the kinds of things that students want to take. And I've been doing this because we did a similar kind of thing at AG Wright years ago, and I can just tell some of the things that teachers would like to do, the kids may not find as intriguing as the teacher does. So how can we get them invested in and interested in things?
So before I get to the survey information, I just want to piggyback a little bit on what Dr. Hannah was saying with regard to I&E. So she mentioned 15 to 20% of the students might receive some type of intervention during the course of the year. And I know at some of the schools we have an intervention block. It's the same block of time, but we'll use that block differently for students who may not have been successful on one assessment, for example, or students who may have missed several days of school. So it provides us an opportunity to provide some remediation for students just in time, and then allow them to get back to their enrichment course. And sometimes that's a real motivator for kids to make sure that they understand the concepts that were taught. So survey information. Surveys were sent out To staff members, to all staff members, and you see the response rate there is 36%. The majority of our students did respond, and then 8% of our parents responded. The questions were worded very similarly so that we could do some comparison among staff, students, and parents. And so you'll see on the first couple of slides, although it's a small percentage of parents, they're relatively in agreement that awareness of the different opportunities through I&E and also the opportunities to explore activities through an I&E, they feel among the three groups that they don't know that students have those opportunities. And I think part of that is really just a matter of publicizing what we're doing and making sure that we're communicating effectively with parents. I know that in our school we've been running an I&E time, we call it ACT, and we've been doing that for the last 6 years, and even parents on our survey said that they were unaware of some of the things that we were doing. And by the way, we just started our fourth quarter ACT, but I would encourage you to go to the Rodney Thompson website. Our Fusion page has both our survey that we use and also our catalog of courses that students got to choose from for the fourth quarter. But again, that's an area that we can certainly improve on. So blue is staff, red is students, and green, yellow, green is parents. So there were 5 responses that all of them could choose from: agree, strongly agree, neither agree nor disagree, which is not part of your slides, disagree, and strongly disagree.
So we grouped the strongly
So we
agree.
Thank you.
So is the red strongly agree or strongly disagree? I'm just trying to.
Right. So the red represents the students. So in this particular slide, students have the opportunity to get additional help in one or more areas during I&E time. So on the left-hand side, that's the people that strongly agreed or agreed with that statement. And then on the right-hand side, you have people that strongly disagreed or disagreed with that statement.
So 77% of our staff members agree that that's a time that students are getting additional help
So agreed and strongly agreed
together.
Combined.
Okay, I just.
That's okay.
So obviously, our staff members feel like that students are getting additional help, and that's a positive thing, and they would know better than anyone. Our students, though, are very close in their agreement that they're getting opportunities for additional help, and that's what counts. This, I think, is a really interesting slide. Students enjoy I&E time, so the question was worded similarly for both the staff, students, and parents. So interestingly, the staff members who did respond to the survey felt very differently from the students. The students enjoy I&E time, but the staff members don't think they do, which I thought was very interesting. And parents are very close in terms of their responses with students. And I attribute that to the fact that many students do go home and talk about what they're doing during I&E time. And then finally, students benefit academically from I&E time. Once again, staff members are the lowest in terms of agreement with that particular statement, but students, interestingly enough, agree most strongly with that statement. So not only do students feel like that they enjoy it, but they also benefit academically from it. And then finally, we did a question with our staff members. Staff members who believe the implementation of I&E time at their respective school has been successful. And you see that's pretty evenly split among staff members in terms of their agreement or disagreement. And I would say to you that any time that you do something new, and this is it's a fairly dramatic change for teachers, any time that you do that, there are going to be some things that don't run quite as smoothly in your first year. I know that we experienced that certainly as a school when we implemented 6 years ago. So Dr. Hannah is going to talk a little bit more about some of our grows and glows.
So what we did was we had a comment section and we looked for common themes or comments. So first, we're going to look at some of the things that students had to say, and the ones that have quotes were direct responses. So if you'll notice, kids enjoy, they say freely without almost any rules. Of course, there are rules, they're in school. But they like that they're given a break from the academic structure of worried about being graded. So for instance, in that C-Perch session, if your device syncs, that's not, a reflection in a grade. It's just go back and rework it. So they like that. And then this one student said they like the sheer amount of open discussion and creativity. So students like that. They like engaging in different ways. And I walked into an I&E that was talking about ethics and personal choices and different things. They would give them a problem like, you have a lifeboat and only this many people can fit on it. Who do you throw overboard and that sort of thing. And students who normally wouldn't write tons and tons in a response could speak that response, and then they figured out, now I know what I would say and I could take it back and put it in writing. So just having that conversation, that dialogue. And then students do say they have a lot of fun, they enjoy it. The GROWs, they think that the time was too long, so some of the schools were doing 9 weeks at first, so now a lot of the schools have moved to different configurations of time, so we're looking at that. They would like more options. Of course, that's limited by what resources you can have, but we do have some that are repeats. I know we have one at Drew that's cartooning with Mr. Godsey, and he teaches them how to take notes. If you've never seen him take notes, he watches the school board meetings online. He takes notes, drawings the whole time you're talking, but then he has visual elements of a meeting, and he's teaching students how to do that, and they love that. They would like, sometimes they don't get their first choice, and we tell them that that's because if we have 36 spots in floor hockey and 183 people want it, we may have to offer it again later, but you may not get that. And they do love the hands-on classes. So that was one of the things that they'd like to see more of. Now, when we look at the teacher responses and themes, they do enjoy helping the smaller groups of students, and they get to know students they would not otherwise teach. I had an 8th grade teacher who told me, did you know 6th graders do something the first time you ask, and when you want volunteers, they all raise their hand. She said that's different than the 8th grade classroom. So she's getting to know students, and I think it brings your school community together because kids know different teachers they would not otherwise know. The students have told me when I was at Rodney Thompson and I was asking students about working with teachers in I&E, one told me, I like having a different teacher that doesn't normally teach me math, explain how to do it because now I understand where I didn't before. So they like that. And the students get to see how the curriculum is applied in the real world scenarios. Those are things that sometimes they don't make those connections. And some teachers have seen that their students enjoy it and that they feel that their suggestions are valued and that they have a choice in what they teach. The areas where we're still going to continue to grow is there is a concern that if you have a lower performing student who needs help in literacy and numeracy, it's going to decrease their opportunities for enrichment. So how can we help those students so that maybe they are getting those opportunities as well? That it takes away from other time of classes, which is true. To get that 30 minutes Tuesday through Friday, we had to shave about 6 minutes off of each of the core times to give us the 30 minutes. So there was concern about that. They had to have time for lesson planning, and they have to collaborate about students' needs. To reformulate your RTI groups about once a month and look at who you have and where you're going to put students, and then to make sure that if I need them for math and he needs them for reading, that we're not trying to get them at the same time. It takes quite a bit of time and quite a bit of planning time later for what lessons you're going to do differently to target those areas of weakness. It's not graded. For some schools, that was a concern. They felt that students might need a little bit more motivation. And again, hard to reach kids that need extra areas. And then some teachers were selected to teach remediation all year at different schools, and that was an issue. They felt like they wanted to be able to do the fun classes and to be able to explore and get to know kids in a different light. So that is something that if that's happening at the schools, the principals are looking at. And then we talked with the parents. They did like the opportunity for help during the day, with a comment being that it's hard to get back after school for tutoring. Our students can't drive. So they like knowing that their students could get the help. They like that they could explore things, that their children were coming back saying positive things about I&E, and they like that there were things that were career interests. One parent had noted that their child was now interested in a science career that previously they were not aware existed because of an I&E opportunity at one of the schools. And they like learning to apply their academic skills in a different way. So the opportunities for growth, again, we have to limit based on class size. So we have all those students who wanted floor hockey, for example, but we can only have so many spaces. And that sometimes a student spends too much time in a class that they don't enjoy or do well in, like math. If they need the extra help in math and then they're back into a math remediation class, the parents are like, well, they don't like math to begin with, and now you're just giving them more math. So that was a concern. The unaware of offerings, and we've talked about ways that we are implementing programs differently, and concern that the academic classes were cut shorter, and so that their kids, for the few kids who might need the extra help or the enrichment. Back to the how are we going to make sure we publicize better? One of the things that we said we could also do was make sure we're showing the parents the academic links, so that even though they're missing the academic time on one side of the house, maybe they're working on math skills in a different way in one of their I&Es, and we need to make sure we're transparent with parents in doing that. So looking at ways on our web pages that we can show parents where we're linking C5W, where we're linking other cross-curricular areas. And I think at that, we have Ms. McCarthy.
Yes. So before, I think may we say a few words just about RTI before we roll into, and you do not have to stand up there for this. This is just a comment.
You probably will, so don't sit down.
No, sit down and relax. So, just Dr. Benson, do you remember, was it last year we started RTI? Was it the year prior? When I mean last year, was it September? I'm sorry, I&E? Was it this year? So it was this year, okay. And so when I supported this when it first came out, maybe in whenever we were first briefed on it, sometime before that, because it was something that, the school came up with to identify, with students that needed help. And then those advanced students are students that wanted to explore different areas, and they also worked that. So that was a big plus with me, especially with our community and our teachers and parents, and I'm parent of four in the school system. So, I want my kids to learn different things and knitting, whatever it is, robotics and all that stuff. And then, so I have some columns here I wrote down, and you hit them, I think, Dr. I want to call it Dr. Tammy, but Dr. Hannah. Dr. Hannah, because everyone calls you Tammy Hannah. They don't ever call you Hannah. They call you Tammy Hannah. So Dr. Tammy Hannah. So I have some columns. So it's a student column, and it's a wonderful picture on the student column, I think. Okay. What we all think about those old days in school where we're not kind of SOL, right? And then the teacher column, and you kind of hit some of it, with the teachers are kind of going, well, yeah, it is more work. Okay, I mean, I get it. It's more planning sessions that we have to have. It's more, it's a lot more things we have to do. And oh, by the way, we're getting evaluated on the SOLs. And I think, and this is just me, thinking out loud, but I think maybe they have some concerns with that too. I think that the teachers want to do this wonderful things with the kids. At the same time, I think that in the back of their mind, they're always like, we're great on the SOL. And so I just wanted to leave that for a comment. And okay.
Can we continue discussion of this section? Go ahead.
Just a really quick question. There were a few slides about the survey. Did you say that you had it on your website, that you could see how your school scored? Is that right?
No, I didn't. What I was talking about was our fourth quarter act,
Okay.
our I&E time.
Uh-huh.
We put our student survey so that they can choose what courses they want.
Okay.
That's what's on our website.
Okay.
So if you go to our website, you'll see that we have a catalog
Right.
of choices, and then we also have a survey that students take. And we encourage our parents to sit down with the students and make their selections for I&E.
Okay. What did you, I'm assuming that you've seen it across division-wide, the survey results. Did you see any big differences between any particular school? Was there one that the survey results were just not really very well?
I didn't see school-by-school results. We only saw division results.
Okay.
We got to see our own school results, but we didn't see school-by-school results.
I mean, I'll give you an example. I can tell you that my parents were not as familiar with the offerings, and I explained this last week at the 6th grade parent orientation. I do not do my sign-ups the same way that Andy does. I want to have more control to make sure that students, the way that he does it, they go online, and it's kind of a first-come, first-choice. I have students that don't have internet access, so that wouldn't really be fair if I opened it up at 6 o'clock at night and parents were sitting around, because if no one helps them, they're never going to get their first choice.
Sure.
The other thing is, and maybe this is just me, but I think when you're 11 years old, 12 years old, you don't get a lot of choices. You don't really get to pick a lot about your clothes. You don't get to pick your meals. You don't get to pick anything. You know, your parents probably help pick your electives. And I told my parents, for once in their little 11-year-old life, I want them to have a choice, because then I hold them accountable. When they come to me and they say something, I say, no, I gave you your first choice, so now we're going to live with that commitment for the next 5 or 6 weeks. But on the same hand, I still need to tell parents the kinds of choices their child selected from. That was where I kind of messed
Let's
up.
talk
So,
about that for a second.
he's one of my parents, he gets no input.
Just to piggyback on that, so we had about 200 students that didn't sign up online. So we end up signing those students up in school, and it
Right.
doesn't impact whether they get their first choice.
Right, so it's different.
But it is a different process for each one of our schools.
Do we, is the data anywhere that somebody could look at it and say, well, look at this, we've got, Shirley Heim is very over the moon satisfied, yet Dixon Smith might be maybe not so
Yes,
satisfied
and I actually
with
have that in
offerings.
my office, all the data from the individual schools as well as the aggregate.
Okay.
But
So
I don't
we
think
do
there were
feel-
any stunning things, like one
Yeah.
was absolutely higher.
Nothing
than
jumped
the other.
out at you.
Correct.
Yeah, the
Okay.
themes were very, very similar throughout the entire division, so I
Okay.
thought that was
Great, thank you.
Tammy.
I'm deferring to Dr. Greider.
I need time.
I'm
And I-
liking Ms. Fallon much better. all the time.
And both as a parent and as a school board member, I was a little skeptical about it. But Connor, who happened
Oh,
to
you
show
saw his
up
picture on
in our
here?
picture in there.
Product placement.
So I know he had at least 3. Podcasting. It's cost me $1,200 next weekend to take him to Boston to a YouTube podcast convention. Gaming. Before the year, he had no chance of beating me at chess. Over spring break, I didn't win one game. And duct tape. Well, that one I had to run out to the to Walmart once at 11 o'clock to get a roll
So
of duct
apparently
tape.
it is working, it spills over into the home.
Yeah. So, from a parent's perspective, and I've seen Connor grow on these, and I've seen him excited about school, and he spent plenty of time with you to know that that's a challenge with him. So I do see that benefit, and I see how Connor was probably one of those who answered, yeah, loves it, and sees the value in it. And frankly, I see him learning in it too. So I like what I'm seeing. I do share Dwayne's concern with the teachers on that lower agreement and higher disagreement, that it's a value and it's implemented well or successfully. I forget what the exact question was. I do hope we grow that. And one of my questions is from there, and also real quick, was it just middle school teacher staff that were surveyed? Because you did say all staff. And it wouldn't make sense, but I'd want to make sure that wasn't like high school and elementary were included in those statistics. Is it capable to bring in folks from the community to help run these classes
Oh, we
this
do,
time?
and we have community speakers. We had pigskin geography in the fall, and the students followed football teams and they did geography. And we have a member of the community who was the movie Remember the Titans. He was there his senior year when they had the integration. And so he came in and spoke to the students. So we have community members who are coming in as guest speakers. We don't really have any that come in and lead on a full-time basis because it's hard for them to come in just for 30 minutes a day for that block of time. But we definitely have people coming in to help us.
But is that a capability? Is there any restriction that we would say, no, we can't have someone come in and teach this session, every day
I think
for 30
we would
minutes?
pair them up with the teacher and they would just do the
Yeah.
same volunteer
Right.
fingerprings.
But
and
it would flex the teacher a little bit so they could
Are you
do some.
volunteering? We'll find something for you.
I have some thoughts, but I think it would be useful to reach out to some of the communities. Falls Run, a 55 and older community where there are a lot of folks that do. I get asked quite a bit. What can I do to help out school as well? And I always tell them go volunteer. Don't necessarily have any specifics. I send them to particular principals to talk to them.
Great idea.
But I would, there's so much value in someone like you mentioned from T.C. Williams who
Right.
wants to do that. So I think with the questions about metrics, that kind of answered all the other questions I had developed during the day. But thank you.
And the other thing about the teacher survey is if you look, it was, 30-some%?
Yeah.
There's almost 60-some% who didn't take it. And I know for some of my own teachers, when I've talked to them, they'll say, well, if I didn't really have anything to say, sometimes I just didn't have time, or I didn't, it was one more email and I didn't get to it. So, there is that also that I think should take into consideration, because most of the teachers that enjoy parts of it, like working with their RTI groups and doing things that they enjoy, but of course with any change you're going to have that implementation phase has that little bit of sticky point. So
if they feel strongly about it one way or the other, they're probably going to respond to the survey.
Correct.
So, good. I think it's heading in the right direction, and I want to see the improvements we implement next year with it,
All right.
the tweaks.
We try to sneak away without questions.
Don't run,
Nope.
don't run away yet. Ms. Fallon, I think you had, Ms. Fallon?
I just want to say that my kids have absolutely loved it. At Stafford Middle, we do it at the end of the day, which is just great. They really look forward to it, and it kind of encourages them to get through the rest of the day. And I do have a child who has done the RTI part of it as well as the enrichment. So it's been nice to be able to be on both sides of that and really be able to see how it's worked with that. But I think it's a great program. And I do know that my middle school is having trouble adjusting to it, but I'm glad that we're sticking with it because, like I said, I think that the kids really enjoy it. The other thing about it is with the teachers, I think that this is kind of one way, like you were saying, they don't have the SOL, holding them to it, that eventually they'll see it as bringing the joy back to the classroom and the joy back to teaching, that they're not being held to that. They don't have to have everything perfect. Nobody is standing over them going, well, how are your kids, doing in this? So I think that that's a great thing about it.
If you ever want to read a book that illustrates kind of that sentiment, is Dr. Seuss's Hooray for the Diffendufer Day. Just letting you know.
Ms. Kidby?
Just very,
Ms.
very
Kidby.
quickly, actually having been an educator in a middle school environment with this kind of configuration for the schedule, it was in a private school environment, but nevertheless it was still this kind of configuration. One of the challenges I found as an educator in that environment was being able to put together meaningful lessons for a 30-minute period that would engage X amount of students on a regular basis. That's very challenging. And they may think they're going to enjoy the subject that they have chosen, and then they get in there and they don't like it, and they don't have the same kind of vested interest. So I found that many times I was spending as much, if not more time, planning for that 30-minute period than I was for all my other math classes. And that was problematic for me, and that might have been my shortcomings as an educator. But I think that's a challenge for many of our educators, and this kind of a configuration for the schedule.
Dr. Benson, did you have a comment? I
Just-
saw at one point
just
you
very
waved.
quickly, I want to reinforce Mr. McOsker and Mr. Hiron's focus on SOLs. We have no intention of stopping being able to say that we are the largest division in Virginia with all schools fully accredited. So we're not saying we're going to give up on that. Okay, we want to be able to continue to say that. At the same time, the governor did sign legislation last week that is going to require the Virginia Department of Education to develop a portrait of a graduate in Virginia, and that will include those 5 C's.
Okay, moving along.
Hi, my name is Roxana McCarthy, and I'm the World Language and ESL Coordinator for the county. And we basically have 2 options for world languages for next year. Besides offering Spanish at every school, option 1 is to hire 2 itinerant teachers that will be able to cover the 8 middle schools that we have. And all of it has issues, and I was just giving an example there. I don't need to read it, but if you have any questions, I will answer it. And option 2 is to use our current teachers that we have from the high schools to go teach at the middle schools if they have some free time. That brings up a lot more issues, but those are the 2 options that we're looking at. And you can read for yourselves and see if you have any questions of either or. I just wanted to make it brief for you.
Thanks for bringing this. The goal here is to have 2 languages at every school. Is that the
It's
goal?
at every school.
Okay.
Currently, it's just Spanish, except for one school that does have other options because they do have the other additional resources.
And since Dr. Hannah is still in the audience here, I am concerned about lower population middle schools, and are we going to be able to achieve that and achieve it effectively because if we only, I think we'll probably fill a Spanish class at a school like Drew, and Drew's our lowest populated school right now. But if we have requests for French, German, et cetera, and my assumption is you're going to continue to first choice, second choice, third choice, and kind of base it off of that. But are we going to be able to, if we only have, 12 kids that sign up for French as their second option, or whatever it might be, even justify a teacher for that?
What our hope would be to have Spanish at all of the middle schools and then one other language. What that might be would be based upon choice. So if you have, say, 15 students who are interested in German and maybe 10 interested in French, well, we would probably offer that German class and then see which class those other students might be interested in at this point. And that's, again, based on resources.
Right. And at a larger populated school like Rodney Thompson, you're probably going to have 30-plus kids. You're going to have the 60, 70, 80 that want Spanish or are directed towards Spanish. But you're probably going to be pretty equal, or you potentially have 60 kids that want French and 60 kids that want German. And what my concern there is, all right, so, I would feel bad, denying a resource that provides that opportunity that those children want and those families want, in lieu of then ensuring we have 2 languages at Drew, but, we have a class of 12 kids.
Certainly. And again, we'd have to look at our resources and how we can allocate those to meet that need. I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that we definitely would at every school, even in that situation, but we do want to provide the most, effective program that we can, and it may mean that we're limiting it to 2 because we do not have those resources. However, if we do, for example, like we did this past year at Dixon Smith, then we would certainly try to do what we could.
All right. Okay. Thanks. Still fighting for Drew. Make sure we get this.
Any other?
Madam Chair, just a consideration, as we continue to look at staffing standards within the division, a differentiated standard based upon size of school is probably something we should be looking at. So, there should be some consideration given to the size of the school, both with small schools and with very large schools. So as we begin to implement and revise those standards moving forward, I think there's some room for the board to try to address that concern.
Ms. Healy.
And I think when we're looking at that, Mr. Hiron raises a really good issue, and it comes down to parity. My personal feeling would be if we only have 12 at Drew, then that would be the exception to the rule, because it's not fair to a school because they have a lower population that they shouldn't have those same opportunities. My concern is that we have the same opportunities across the board, and right now we don't. Ironically, that's how we got into offering Spanish across the board, and then yeah, it's great we have a school that has more than Spanish, but all the other ones don't. So I think that's something that the board's going to have to grapple with. And I appreciate you bringing us some options here. I don't think the high school one is probably not going to work, because I know, most of those teachers are pretty full, unless we had one that, was hired to help fill in. But the itinerant teachers are an interesting, possibility to look at, and that may help us, have the parity that we have, agreed to strive for in the middle schools at, a reasonable cost.
And it's 2 teachers to cover the entire middle school division, all 8 schools, for that other language. So that's a plus for that one as well. All right, we're going to go ahead, and then if you're okay, move forward. We have high school next. We are also going to do a brief mention of APPX as well as CTE, and then I'm going to close out with an announcement regarding Mountain View.
What about IB?
That was not in the presentation. I'm sorry. No, we're just looking at AP. Now, we do have some, if
Is
you
there
have
a
questions
reason?
about it, we do have some information, but it was not in the presentation. I apologize.
But isn't that part of the program evaluation? Well, we can have a separate presentation on that. I think it's really important because we've raised questions about IB, and we've talked about expanding the, opportunities for AP classes or collaboration or whatever. But you may not be here, Dr. White, unfortunately, but I'd like to put my request in to have that evaluation before the end of the school year.
We have some information that we can share if you have specific questions about IB.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So I just want to, while you tee up the next one, I just want to, one thing I want to talk to the board, just when we do talk about languages, it's very important, as I'm having children go visit colleges now, and a lot of the colleges, they want 4 years, same language. If not, they want a note from the counselor. So what we have to do is we really have to plan so that we're not changing, whatever we stick with, whatever, we need to start getting with it, because it's affecting, they're showing up to colleges and they're like, hey man, you need 4 years, same language, so give me a note from your counselor. And note from the counselor doesn't work real well on a lot of these colleges.
And Tom is actually, Mr. Nichols is actually going to speak about that. But that's one of the things that's also changing our communication with parents and with students. It's no longer good enough to do a 2 and 2. Do 4, and that's why we're looking at offering now at least 5 years for every student who comes through school. Mr. Nichols?
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members. It's an honor to stand before you 1 year later than when I presented the high school scheduling plan, so it's an opportunity to give you an update. As we started the meeting out, Dr. Benson gave us our marching orders, and together the 5 high school principals worked collaboratively to present a plan. One of the issues was looking at virtual delivery systems, both synchronous and asynchronous. And this year we piloted with Mountain View High School offering AP European History to Stafford High School students at the same time. So while students in Mountain View were being presented with the curriculum for AP European History, the students at Stafford High School were watching by video feed and learning at the same time with the facilitator. At this point, they say that things have gone smoothly after a little rocky start. New program is always tough to get going, but they're going well. And they're going to do some student surveys and analyze the test scores and also the grades at the end of the year. And just to give you a reference, the Commonwealth Government School uses synchronous learning a lot within the different regional high schools, where a teacher down in Spotsylvania will present a lesson to the students in Stafford County at their different sites. Asynchronous, where we have students learning at different times but learning the same material. We currently use the Virtual Virginia School, which is an online programs sponsored by the Virginia Department of Education. And also we use Edgenuity, which is a credit recovery program where we have students who failed a course may go back and take the course online in a different environment. Both of these have been very successful in meeting different demands and also scheduling some of those unique scheduling issues that we have. The hybrid schedule. We implemented hybrid, which is a combination of 4x4, which last one semester for a class, and also alternating day, which go on every other day for the whole school year. These two schedules provided flexibility not only for meeting student needs, but also for the different courses in the high schools. And all 5 high schools implemented this schedule this year and will continue to refine and implement as we move into next year and also the years beyond. World languages that you're just talking about, with the elimination of the middle school traveling to the high schools and some of the offerings that they may have had, we wanted to make sure that all students that come to the high school, if they've had 0 foreign language courses when they arrive as a 9th grader, that we'd be able to make sure that a student could get 5 years of the language before they graduate to meet your concern. So we've worked out in our schedule to make sure that these students can go through levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and possibly even 5 if they'd like. And again, the potential does exist, again, based on scheduling and needs. That's possible that an itinerant teacher may be able to go down to the middle school, again, depending on needs and the number of students who are taking the classes in the high school level. Then we also looked at the travel program, CTE, and our signature programs. Basically, we implemented a half-day travel program, which meant the students would only travel in the morning, around lunchtime, yes, lunchtime at 10:30, 10:40, and at the end of the day. And this has worked out very well this year. It did require a little change. The students who come over for, say, automotives that was only 1 block in length, they'd have to take another course at the high school. So students take 2 courses at the travel site, And again, this is something that we worked together with the high school principals during scheduling time. We sat down when we'd get the students traveling for the program, and we'd find out which classes would meet their needs. And again, we'd provide them. And again here, talking with Barry Southerth, he will not have the exact data till we move into August, September, I believe, but right now it looks like we may exceed the $100,000 mark in savings based on eliminating roughly 36 to 40 runs during the day. And just throwing in some quotes, I went into one of the engineering classes and talked to some kids, said, hey, would anybody be willing to give me a quote on your experience with travel? And you can read those, but the things that came up, hey, it's part of my day. It's a nice break in the middle of the day to take a bus ride. I was a Stafford student. Another student said, it gives me the opportunity to explore different programs, prepare me for my future. Another student said there that, it gives me an opportunity to take classes that aren't offered in my school. Another student said that, I'm able to make friends at different schools and we become one big family between all the high schools. And then the last one there, between travel, thinking, leaving the building, getting on the bus, getting to school, eating lunch, because our travel students eat at the destination school, eating at a different facility would be a lot of problem. This one even said, this didn't impact me in a massive way at all. So it was very positive in looking at the half-day program. And with that, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have on what we've done this year.
Go ahead, Ms. Egan.
Just a real quick question about the XY days. Have you gotten any feedback from any of the teachers? I know we had a little bit of a rough winter with some reason it was always falling on an X day that we had no school. Did you find that a lot of those X day classes were kind of not getting left behind, but we're a little bit behind on where they were supposed to be at that time of year?
Each year has its own set of situations and circumstances that we have to deal with. Being at a school where we've had alternating day for the last 8 years and 4x4 classes, it seems to balance out when you get through. And some years you'll miss more X days than Y days, but we try to balance out, make sure we're eliminating any class activities that we might be taking away from the time to make sure we're ensuring that they have the instructional time. The teachers have adapted. I didn't really, quite frankly, I haven't had any teachers come up and really complain and say, hey, this is just killing me this year.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair.
Mr.
The virtual Virginia delivery model. Mm-hmm. Do we have any information on how students perform after taking a class through that model? I've had some parents email me and communicate with me that they're not really excited and not happy about the quality of the content of virtual Virginia in particular.
We've implemented, we're probably one of the first schools in Stafford County to implement the virtual Virginia program, and I would say we did that probably 9 years ago, and we found it to be very successful. They're a high rigorous course. A lot of them are the AP standards, so you have the teachers following the College Board syllabus. They have to have those approved. We have a lot of our students who are advanced students taking the AP courses through there because it won't fit in their schedule because of some conflict, because of, quite frankly, the other AP courses that they're taking. To tell you the data, I do not have right now data that will say that it's not working. We've had a lot of students go off to college and have been successful, and they've taken part in the program.
It could be interesting if we can figure out a way to collect some of that data. Obviously, probably not, I don't know what population we can do that with, whether it's this year or over the next couple years. But I would like to keep an eye on virtual Virginia and make sure that it is providing to our expectation. Otherwise,
Ms. Kidby?
The synchronous learning, are we going to take advantage of more opportunities in that regard for next year?
I think each year has its, like I said, different circumstances. We're right now looking for physics, and right now I haven't found one, so I'm sure that if we can't find a physics teacher, we'll have to work with some of our other schools. Hopefully not. Hopefully we'll find somebody graduating and coming to Stafford, Virginia.
Yeah, well, when they
I think we
graduate
are
in
looking.
physics, then it's a little
Yes,
harder.
it is, especially with the lab.
Get them to teach.
But we're open to the areas that we can't find teachers. to
So is that what you're targeting, or are you targeting the opportunity and beauty of the learning model itself?
I think both. We're also looking at some of the schools that don't offer the AP. I think that's one of the situations that we started with, that schools may not offer the exact same programs, but how do we get students at one school to take one of these programs? And that's where we piloted this year with the AP European History, that they weren't offering it at Stafford High School, but they had interest for students.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to, granted, AP students are typically very motivated students.
Yes.
And so they have a tendency to be successful in most environments. It would be interesting to see if a synchronous learning environment would work for something other than an AP class.
Mm-hmm. And we will consider those. We were pretty much piloting it this year, since that was one of our mandates, is really to offer more delivery models for our students. So this is the first year that we've done it in this manner. So I do foresee that we will open that up and expand that throughout the division.
All right, thank you.
And I'm going to briefly go over just something, and since I don't have the other information, I will provide any additional information. I can give you enrollment numbers and send it to the board tomorrow, and then if we need another presentation, we can do that. But I did want to say that all of our signature programs are continuing to progress with various levels of success. And our most recent program, APPX, will have its first graduating class. We'll have 8 students graduating this year, and we currently have approximately 158 in the program throughout all 3 schools that offer it: Colonial Forge High School, North Stafford High School, and Stafford High School. But I will provide additional information tomorrow via email for all the school board members, just so you can look at the data, and then if you have any further questions, we can come back and present for you. Okay? And then I would like to turn it over to Dinah Robinson to talk about STAT and CTE in Stafford County.
Any questions on APPX before, Ms. Healy?
My question isn't on APPX, and I appreciate you getting that information, but what I'm particularly interested in is the opportunities that we have in our IB schools for students to take AP classes. That was a subject of significant and substantial discussion on the board last year, and I know the principals were working hard to expand those opportunities, and I would like to get some, and it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but perhaps that's something that we could follow up on before the end of the year to see what progress we've made in making AP credit available to the students in the IB schools.
Definitely. And that will also be a part of what we do is moving forward with synchronous delivery model as well. So that's just one part of it, certainly.
Right. And but we had so much discussion about that, and we were, we were just promised, to use, in a simple word, that would be done and that there would be more opportunities for our students. So I'd just like to see, the follow through and the report on, what the results of that activity were.
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, Vice Chairman, school board members, and Dr. Benson. We would like to present 2 options for consideration regarding the Stafford High School Technology Education Program beginning 2017-2018. Option 1 would be to reinstate the STAT engineering program using the Project Lead the Way curriculum. This program is currently available at North Stafford High School to all students in the county, and transportation is being provided. While the Project Lead the Way curriculum is a nationally recognized curriculum, it does require specialized training for instructors. Instructors are required to complete costly training for 6 different courses. Once trained, these teachers become highly marketable to other school districts. Option 2 would be to implement an engineering and geospatial technology program. To meet the request for engineering courses, we suggest offering the engineering, exploration, and engineering studies courses, which are already in the program of studies and are currently being taught at Colonial Forge High School and Mountain View High School. In an effort to provide additional opportunities to our students, we would like to propose adding a 2-year geospatial technology program. This program would pertain to the study and use of geographic information systems, global positioning systems, and remote sensing and other mobile technologies. Geospatial technology is a fast-growing career field with job openings at the local, state, and federal levels, as well as the military. There's also the potential for us to partner with 2- and 4-year colleges and universities. I recently had a discussion with James Madison University about a partnership between the Geographic Science program at JMU and our school system. They have a Geospatial Academy outreach program that would allow their staff to train our teachers for free. As part of this partnership, JMU instructors would visit our classrooms periodically to provide assistance to our instructors, provide mentorship to our students, and as a result, our students could be dual enrolled for 3 credits in geography. Once piloted at Stafford High School, we would like to expand the geospatial technology offerings to other high schools in our division. I highly encourage consideration of this option. Additional STEM opportunities are also on the horizon. We currently have 3 Stafford County teachers participating on the VDOE curriculum writing team for the proposed cybersecurity course. We are hopeful that a state course code will be released over the coming months and that we can add this to our IT Academy as well as to our other high schools. In addition, in order to make the STAT program more consistent and more flexible with the goal of better serving our students' needs, the following changes will be made for 2016-2017. We will retain the STAT cohort model and designate all STAT academic classes as honors. However, students will have the option at the end of 10th grade to reassess their academic plans. They can choose to stay in the STAT academic cohort classes for 11th and 12th grade, or they can opt out of their STAT academic cohort and take a higher level course such as AP or IB course at their base school. Students that opt out of the academic cohort would still remain in the STAT CTE elective cohort and travel to the program school for a half a day and then return to their base school. All Stafford High School and Brook Point students enrolled in the STAT engineering program will take their STAT academic courses at North Stafford High School next year instead of their base school, unless they, as 11th or 12th graders, choose to leave the academic portion of the cohort to take college-level courses as previously mentioned. This will make them consistent with all the other engineering students in the program. Thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Hirons?
Just real quick, David, on the options at Stafford High School, is that going to be a board decision or board input? And if so, when are you going to be asking us for that input?
Well, we can. What we'll do is we'll explore the options as they come up and what it will take. I'm sorry, what resources we'll need in order to implement that. But if Dr. Benson, if that's a board decision, we will bring that to the board so that you all can have some say in that. It's just really a matter of resources and where we want to put those resources. I think that if we can offer alternatives to Stafford High School, I think that that is a viable option, and that's what we would recommend. However, if you all see, would like to look at something different, we could certainly consider that as well.
Okay, minimum, I think probably Dwayne as well. We want to stay informed because
yes, definitely.
I think both of us hear from former STAT parents quite a bit. So
yeah, definitely, and we'll keep you informed on that.
Ms. Healy?
When we're pursuing the discussions with JMU, which I think is an excellent, opportunity, one thing we should address is the cost. Because when my daughter was at Mountain View, she was able to do a dual enrollment with JMU, but I think it cost about $400, which was significantly more than the, Germana dual enrollment. So we want to make sure that we negotiate the best rates we can, to make it affordable to our families. Although when she took a college course in the summer and it cost me $1,500 for a state school, not including the books, I thought that $400 was a real bargain. But I think it's something to keep in mind. That was 6 or 7 years ago. So I assuming that the rates have only gone up since then. But if they're bargaining, we can get a good deal. Thanks.
And just to put a plug in as well, we are looking at an early college program. with Germanna Community College, hopefully in sometime in 17-18. We're still working through that, what the model will look like, but that's something we're moving towards as well, and hopefully in the near future we'll be able to provide you with some additional information on that. And last but not least, I did want to share with you some good news regarding the Marine Corps JROTC at Mountain View High School. We did receive an acceptance letter. The Department of the Navy, the Secretary of the Navy, did approve for us to have a Marine Corps, and it's not in JROTC, but it's the National Defense Corps at Mountain View for the 2017-18 school year. So we're very excited about that. I know we're going through some renovations beginning this year to make sure that we have an adequate facility to house that contingent at Mountain View. So we're very excited about that, and I wanted to make sure that you all saw the official letter coming from United States Marine Corps.
Do we have the official response? I see it asks us to respond
I was just
within
gonna
10
say
business
10 days.
days.
I spoke with Ms. Carmen Cole and let her know that we are interested. As a matter of fact, when she first called, I said, that the board had expressed an interest in that, and we will follow up with that as well, but I wanted to present it to you at first.
Well, can we reply in letter to the director as they requested?
Certainly.
Sometimes these
10 days.
things.
And I let
follow
her
up.
know, but I wanted to.
Oh, sure. But you're not going to be with us next year. Boo-hoo.
I walk down the street and knock on Colonel Altman's door.
And I want to thank this board for supporting this program at Mountain View. It will be very much appreciated by the families and the students who are able to participate, in this. And thank you for your help. And also, Mrs. Reinbold, worked really hard to, help us get here. So thank you
And I'd
all.
like to thank, if I could, all of the principals, middle and high school principals, as well as the Department of Instruction, who gave input into this report and added their information. I think that, it is nice to give you all updates at a reasonable time, and we'll continue to do so. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Any final questions?
I feel like we should applaud.
I know, exactly. Okay, we are going to move on to citizen comments. I have one speaker signed up. I will, if you do plan to speak, if you all would line up after that, behind that person, come up, give your comments, and then sign in on the clipboard, that would be great. Let me give the introduction. I will have Lee Tonis. I'm going to think I'm close. You can come on up. You'll be our first speaker, and then anyone who wishes to speak after that, if you'll line up. But let me give the introduction while you're coming forward. Individuals wishing to comment, speakers shall identify themselves by name, address, and organizational affiliation if the spokesperson represents an organization. Speakers shall also announce the purpose or topic of their comments. 3 minutes shall be allotted to speakers. You'll see the green light come on. When your 2 minutes is up, it'll give you the warning light with the yellow, and then red will go. When you are finished, please take 5 seconds to wrap up at that point. The chairman reserves the right to restrict the total citizen comment received at any particular meeting to a predetermined maximum number of minutes with the approval of the board. Citizen comment which is profane, abusive, or which threatens imminent physical harm shall be ruled out of order by the chair. Although the board provides the opportunity for citizen comment, individuals desiring to register complaints against division employees or division programs, services, or activities may also utilize the procedures outlined in Policy 1113, Public Complaints. Sir, you may go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Lee Terrace. I represent Xerox Corporation. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. What I would like to inquire about is item 13.10 on tonight's agenda. And that item states that the board is recommending the copier services RFP be awarded to RICO. And it's not that I'm a sore loser, but I do hate losing. But the reason I would like to inquire about this is, as I understand Board Policy 5801, the board directs that the procurement of goods and/or services be executed at the lowest practicable cost for the benefit of the division and those it serves. In the absence of a board policy or regulation pertaining to any specific aspect of procurement, the applicable provision of the Code of Virginia and/or the Stafford County Procurement Ordinance shall apply. So where I'm going with this is I'm a little perplexed because today Based on an award made in April of 2012, you are currently using RICO, and your current spend is $618,000 per year as documented in your board notes. On this RFP, Xerox was a responsible bidder. We are within the specs of the RFP, and we actually bid a total of $607,056 annually. So the result would be we would save this board a little over $10,000, closer to $11,000 on current spend. And what is equally perplexing is the award that is to be recommended per the notes of the agenda is RICO coming in at $650,000 a year. So I'm a little bit perplexed to understand why the board would take on an additional $32,000 a year over current spend when you can in effect take on $10,000 or $11,000 in savings from Xerox. That is a $43,000 swing, which over the 4-year term of the bid is $173,000 roughly-ish dollars. So while of course it is within your rights to do as you choose, pursuant to Board Policy 5801, I would ask that the board would table it at the very least, if not explain in writing to us why this decision has been made. Prior to this meeting, we did request a meeting with Terry Stafford. She was responsive, but basically said, I am very new in my position and could not explain it, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. So I see I'm coming down to the wire, but that would be my comment, my question, and my ask is at the very least, please table the award and do not award tonight, and please consider Xerox or a different option. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Is there, we don't tend to do a dialogue here, so are there any other speakers for public comment this evening? Okay, come on forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, board members. My name is Mark Edwards. I live at 5 Astor Lane, Stafford, Virginia, right up the street here. What I wanted to talk about was basically dealing with jobs. You know, we have a lot of IT firms here that deal with technology, but what are we doing to prepare our students to take those jobs on instead of the jobs being outsourced from people from other countries and other states there? So I'm just wondering, in the school system, are we preparing our students to take on these jobs, should I say meaningful jobs or career-orientated jobs, instead of looking at jobs like food service or some job, not to demean those jobs, but I think that our students here should be prepared in school to get these IT jobs and stuff with all these companies that are coming to Stafford. Thank you.
You wouldn't mind signing in on the clipboard right behind you. It's other side. Right there. You wouldn't mind signing in. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? If not, I will close citizen comments and we will move on to student discipline matters, item 9.01. Madam Vice Chair.
Okay. On March 17th, 2016, a committee of the board met to consider 2 student disciplinary matters. The committee found expelled student A and authorized student A to attend the Regional Alternative Education Program, and suspended student B for the remainder of the 2015-16 school year, and authorized student B to attend the Regional Alternative Education Program.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Now we will move on to board comments. Mr. McCosker, why don't you start us?
None.
None? Ms. Healy?
No comments, thank you.
Ms. Egan?
I'm just going to make it really quick because it's kind of getting late. I just wanted to thank the Stafford County Sheriff's Department. A couple of weeks ago, I had expressed some concern about folks blowing through stopped school buses with the red lights extended or the arms extended, people speeding through the school zones like they weren't even illuminated. They came out and they evaluated and they ticketed and they even took a drunk driver off of the road with our morning school buses. So thanks to the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kibbe?
Just very briefly, Rodney Thompson Middle School lost a valuable employee just yesterday, and it was very difficult. It has been very difficult for the school. It was very sudden. Miss Johnson, Vicki Johnson, had been with us over 15 years, I believe. And my condolences, my personal condolences, go to the family and friends of Miss Johnson, and particularly to the staff and faculty over there at Rodney Thompson.
Thank you. Ms. Fallon?
Real quickly, I just want to say that I had the opportunity a few weeks ago to go to Shirley Heim Middle School for their production of Annie, and it was amazing. And I'm looking forward to going to see The Jungle Book in the coming weeks at Stafford High School. And I also just want to encourage parents and remind you that PTO elections are coming up in your schools, so go out and be involved.
Mr. Hirons?
Way to steal my plug. I was going to make sure we got invited last week by Mr. Dodario with the drama department at Stafford High School, but I wanted to reiterate, if you want to see the best in the county, actually I mean documented, best in the state, drama club, drama performance. The Jungle Book is being performed at Stafford High School this Friday and Saturday evening, 7 p.m., next Friday and Saturday evening at 7 p.m., and 2 p.m. on both of those Saturdays for a more matinee, more kid-friendly, family-friendly performance. I'd really encourage you. They really are incredibly talented, as all of our high school, middle school fine arts performances are, but Stafford just happens to be best in the state.
You forgot to wear your T-shirt tonight. Again, there is so much going on in our county right now. I hope people will go out and see all the great things going on. During spring break, most of you all know, we were, of course, out of school, but during that time there was an anniversary that was met on April 1st. Yes, April Fool's Day. It was our second anniversary of Dr. Benson's tenure here, and I can't understate the way that Dr. Benson has impacted our community. I could go on, I would like to go through that, but I know it is late, but I just do want to say thank you, Dr. Benson, for coming to Stafford. I know you run in Stafford. I know you're a member of the Stafford community, which was something that was very much sought after by our community, and we are thrilled that you have joined us. We can't wait for more years. I know that your mantra is about data-driven decision-making, and I'm glad that you have helped lead our board in that way, and look forward to many more years under your leadership and assistance to the board. Thank you. Now, superintendent comments.
And it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure serving this board and serving this community, so I thank you for that opportunity. And I'll go with that running thing. Saturday morning at Stafford Hospital 5K, 165 members of our school community will be running in that Stafford race. So we will be a noticeable force.
All right, moving on to consent items. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of 1101 and 1102 consent items. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Madam, point of privilege before we get into action
Yes.
items, 5 minutes, please.
Yes, we will be in recess for 5 minutes. I believe that this item is reflective. There has been no changes since we had it as information 3 weeks ago, I believe. There have been no changes, as I understand, and the Board of Supervisors has already acted on their portion at the meeting on the 5th. So I was going to ask if there were any additional questions to Ms. O'Brien or anybody else.
None.
No question.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Vote out on one.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the health and dental plan designs. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to 12.02. This is regarding the award of a construction delivery order regarding Stafford High School track. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion regarding this?
Can't wait
Stafford
to
High
be
School?
out there and see that new track.
Ms. KB, you have a question?
I just want to make sure that, I'm reading through it real carefully again, that it's being funded as we discussed. There's been no changes in the funding structure, right? All right, that's fine.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. On to information items. Our first information item is to discuss metrics for the biennial goals for the strategic plan. I'm going to say Dr. Benson first, and then I'll...
Sure. We drafted the biennial priorities for the board, and we've taken the first draft of
This mic's not on.
metrics that we'd like the board...
Is your mic on?
Sorry. We've drafted the language for the biennial priorities for the board's consideration, and we've also taken, developed a first draft of a potential set of metrics for each one of those priorities. If I could suggest to the board that this is probably more appropriate for a work session format, and if the board would like us to do that, we could look at adding a work session to the front end of the next board meeting.
As you all may be aware, we moved this item based on other things that we needed to consider this evening, so it was not important, but I'm very impressed with the work here. Is there a feel for wanting to do a work session regarding this item for the next meeting?
I think that an hour work session would be sufficient for discussion and presentation.
We may
looks like
also
there's a lot of information there.
But we may also have budget information at the same time. So I just want to caution everybody that we may have information. I mean, we certainly can't, depending on actions taken by the Board of Supervisors. So I'm just trying to gauge the timing if we're going to do it before our team.
Can I ask a question? Is Brook Point the only high school that has parent-teacher conferences that Tuesday?
I don't know.
Do we know? Because there's 4 parents up here. If it's just me, then go ahead and have it. But if it, I mean,
Yeah.
we might want to consider that.
How about we plan at this time to do it that evening? Of course, as budget information becomes available, please answer our wonderful clerk if she sends out other ideas for other items we may need to consider. Are there any questions right now, or would we prefer to just wait till work session? Yep. All right. Let's do that. And then if there is an availability issue that evening earlier, please send that information to our clerk so we can manage that.
Madam Chairman, in the event we're not able to have a work session or an extended work session, perhaps board members could send Dr. Benson any questions they have about this proposal or any suggested revisions to it in advance so that he would have an opportunity to address that and share it with the board, because I know a lot of work has gone into this, and I certainly respect Dr. Benson's expertise in this area, and particularly in the, the measurements and things like that, so I don't think I'll have many questions for you.
Okay. All right, well then moving along to item 13.02, which was discussing June 14th as a teacher workday. We have learned that there is not going to be a primary that day, so that portion, but I do believe we were looking to staff for some additional guidance. Dr. Benson or others.
I was going to say, Mr. Martin, it's just you. We're waiting on you to get.
I'm not going to steal Mr. Martin's thunder, but I do. And I think he and I have talked this over enough, he had asked if I would just sort of make some introductory remarks to kind of lead some of the comments to begin with. First of all, this is a work effort that has enjoyed the support of the Sheriff's Office, and Sheriff Decatur and his staff have worked very closely with our Risk Management and Safety Security Office to bring information forward. The concerns and exposures related to or associated with our school facilities' use as polling places can be narrowed to when students and staff have use of those facilities in common with what goes on as a voting facility or a polling place. So, if there is voting taking place in our facilities and students and staff are utilizing those facilities, then there are exposures to risk that are possible, and I think that's the subject of why Greg and I are present this evening. Mr. Martin, Greg Martin, our Risk Management and Safety and Security Specialist, in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department, has been very busy assessing that exposure, and with that, and talking and working with the Sheriff's Office, he's been taking into consideration several factors and reviewing each of our locations that are used as polling places. There are about 15 of them, as you well know. And in just listing some of those areas of consideration, he has looked at the availability of school resource officers in each of those locations. He's been looking at the availability of school security officers in each of those locations. The ability to cordon off or separate the voting areas in each of those locations from where our students and staff are actually engaged in the business of going to school and working in each of those areas, where those traffic areas are, where student and staff are engaged. The availability of closed-circuit TV, because that does involve the business of security, metal detection, whether or not there is actually that capacity, and then just the general access of the public and the people who come to vote in regards to the student areas and so forth. And in that sort of security sort of assessment that was done in each of those areas, then the next step, of course, is to what do we need to do in terms of the planning and how best to mitigate any of those weaknesses that might occur in any of those areas. So that's been our efforts to do the threat assessment in each of those areas. So, for example, as Greg has looked through these areas, can we install, for example, drop-down security gates? Can we do any of the security separations that might occur, for example, where voting is taking place from the students? And there are some areas, for example, that might have that capacity more so than others. And what about hiring, for example, security people just for meeting the security needs at each location just on polling days? So those are some of the things that have been taking place. There are some of the things that we need to continue reviewing. So at this point in time, I think Mr. Martin can probably better answer some of the questions than I can. But
I think our question was, do we have any recommendations to get to the registrar, which was our specific question. Do we have any recommendations so we can coordinate now and not wait until, last minute? That, I believe, was our question.
Madam Chairman, that's a good question, and this is good information, but this is not what's on the agenda. And I'm concerned that we're going to be having this discussion, which is a discussion that needs to be had, but there may be other people that want to weigh in on it when it's not even published as part of the discussion for tonight. The only thing on the agenda is discuss June 14, 2016 as a teacher workday due to potential primary elections. Now, my understanding is that's not an issue anymore, right? There's no primary election on June 14th.
Correct.
So this...
So it was worded in.
No, it was good. Yeah, it's got some great points there, just not for tonight.
Okay, right.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Just wanted to make you aware of what efforts we had.
No, and we need to come back by school with they've obviously got their physical security lists. They just need to come back by school and brief us in the back.
We do, and my apologies to the
no.
board. I was under the impression that the board was looking for some information related to what number of schools might be at risk to the point where we would want to be working with folks to find alternate polling places.
We were, and Emily and I brought that up last week,
Yeah.
regardless of what happened with June 14th, that Emily and I had asked for that information. However, Trish is right, it should have been listed as a separate agenda item on the agenda, so that people going through there could say, oh, they're going to be talking about potential
good.
sites
It's
in the
just not-
future. So
not
she's
tonight.
right.
We need
We
to
need it.
have
We'll
this
just move it to next time.
discussion, but it should be its own
Yeah, it's not tonight.
agenda item. And I would think that we would be given some materials to review, in advance, as typically we do when there's going to be a presentation, because there's nothing here. I assume this was just going to be a discussion on whether June 14th is a workday. So perhaps, Madam Chairman, if this could come back in the not-too-far future, with information for the board, and, we can have an informed
And,
discussion.
That's fine.
and if it does, can we get a formal or an invitation to the registrar to
attend.
be here as well? I know we can't ask him, we can't demand him, he works for the state, but can we send him an invitation to come to that meeting? Because I think it'd be very useful for him to be involved in the discussion as well.
No problem.
Yeah, even if it's in the back room, probably the first one should be back there, I would think, on a work session with this stuff. But anyway, that's me.
I just want to thank Deputy Ricazzi, who helped me with the assessment. It took a couple days, so I just want to thank him.
Can that be shared with us, that is, or, made available to the public, the assessment, or is there any reason? Is any?
I'm not sure the
privacy
assessment should be
issues?
made available to the
Okay.
public, but
Okay.
I think it should be a work session. I think
Okay.
it should be a work session.
So this,
That would be a work session topic,
Well,
yeah.
if we're going to be discussing it in a public meeting, I don't know why it wouldn't be made
Well,
available.
yeah.
Well, there's certain items on the report, ma'am, that we don't want to make public.
All right, oh,
All
they
right.
shouldn't have done
We
that.
will bring this item back once we move within the parameters and come up with the best way to handle this. I will certainly chat with those board members who brought it forward to make sure that we have met, where we want to be going forward. I believe that when we discussed this item, we did have a very forward-thinking view of making sure we didn't run out of
Right.
time.
And
So we
Madam
will
Madam Chair,
reformat.
I just want to remind you that Mr. Hirons actually brought up the issue of doing something right away to get Moncur off the list completely without having, any further evaluation of anything, because we've got our own issues there, so.
But that was not the will of the board.
It was
The night
not?
that not to pick one individual school. There was discussion among the board that did not
Okay, well, then I
carry
think we need
as
to
a
move
motion.
forward and make sure we have.
There was not, and that motion did not carry that night.
Okay, I
So-
stand corrected.
I mean, it was brought up, but it was not, that was not what the consensus of the board was that evening. Because that was the motion anyway, we can go back, we will reformat this item to capture exactly where we want to go going forward as a forward-thinking item. So,
Okay.
let's move on to 13.03.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discuss possible redistricting of APU 188.
So, Madam Chair, if I would, I know Scott Haran and his folks had put some new numbers up just to save us some time. I've incorporated his numbers, but just to set the stage here, unless he wants to get up and brief his slides, but I think we've already looked at them. Set the stage here is, last meeting we talked about the possible redistricting of the Ferry Farm folks, and I don't have my pointer, but the APU 188 is west of I-95. Here's Ferry Farm School, elementary school, and the kids west of 95 are just having a very difficult time getting to school. It's gotten a little bit better. I used the 15 to 30 minutes late for class during the day. I will tell you that it's probably more to 10 to 15 now, but it was 30 because we just fixed the bus routes not 8 months ago with Barry Sudduth. So APU 188 is 45 kids in the England Run point. So that's the scene setter. Can you go to the last slide? Here is Mr. Haran's updated data. My data was, as I had mentioned earlier, was October, that first month after they were in school, October 15th. And here's the new data for the schools that we're talking about. If you look up top, just the 188 option is the one that I think that we really need to do. I have the principal of Ferry Farm here tonight to say a few words as well. The school invited him, not me. So Dr. Benson invited him. But, you know, the most needed, as you see up top in that left-hand corner in green, is the, you know, west of 95, England Run Point, APU 188, 45 students. Here is the current situation. On the left in the yellow is the current situation of right now. Here's where our schools are. Falmouth, that's design capacity 794, basically 69% in capacity. Ferry Farms 83, Hartwood's 85, and Margaret Brent's at 94 design capacity. If we go to the right of the chart, you know, once again, moving that high risk area for us to try to get these kids off that school bus for these long times and come into class late is the APU 188. If the 45 students are moved, here are the new numbers, the new enrollment numbers by school. And you see the design capacity goes to 75, 77 for Ferry Farm, Hartwood 92, and Margaret Brent 99. And I think the only Title I in there was Falmouth. So what I want to ask the board is this, I think I would like to have these students moved by the next school year, but I do understand Mr. Hirons mentioned and Ms. Kidby mentioned there's the sensitivity of the redistricting and how we have done it way a lot earlier in the spring before the school year, because right now we have about 3.5-4 months, even though it's only 45 kids. So I think it's the board's will to wait until the next school year and redo this in October. So what I would ask the board to do is agree to bring this data back in October with 2 courses of action. You know, unless you come up with more, saying okay, they go into Falmouth. Well, 3. They're staying at Ferry Farm. They're going to Falmouth, or they're going to go to Hartwood, and then have the pros and cons on those 3 options. And if that you know, and Dr. Freeman, you're not doctor yet. Principal Freeman, you want to come up and say hello? You don't work for me, so you don't really have to listen to me, but
You can invite him.
I'll invite you up to say hello.
I appreciate that. Good evening. This was brought to my attention when Mr. McCosker had asked me about the rezone of the students from our England Run neighborhood, and I will tell you that the main reason for this is the distance that they're traveling. It's impacting instruction in the classroom, not really. When they do arrive at school, we have been looking at the bus times. Barry shared some information. When we run into problems with our buses, it's when we have sub-bus drivers. And our sub-bus drivers, an example is before spring break. We had many of the students weren't leaving this bus 287, wasn't leaving until 4:15 in the afternoon. So then they have that travel all the way across Route 1, under 95, down Route 17 to get the kids home. I'm not sure what length that is for that bus ride, but it's a large distance. And so we're looking at what's best for students. You know, should they be on a bus for such a lengthy period of time? What can we do to help this community or this neighborhood so that we can get them to a closer school? I'm here to answer any other questions you might have about this proposal.
So some of the other options are, you know, some of the other, you know, pros and cons are, you know, although Hartwood is, you know, more design capacity is increased, they would go to the same middle school as they're designated. Right now, all the kids in Ferry Farm go to Dixon Smith.
We go to Dixon Smith, and a small population go to Drew.
Small population will go to Drew.
And we have our students from this neighborhood who attend Gale Middle School.
Gale Middle. And then I believe Hartwood also goes to Gale Middle.
Yes.
Right. And so they would be going to school with the kids that they are following up middle school with. So
all of Falmouth, Bottom, and then that
Drew.
One neighborhood, they all go to Gale as well, don't they?
I am not sure. Are you talking about the Ingleside, or are you
Yeah,
talking
Ingleside.
Ingleside? I'm not sure about Ingleside.
I'm not sure. I know that a lot of Falmouth goes to Drew.
Yeah, but I think those guys, I think that's east of 95, and I believe they go to Gale, which just shrinks that population of students that go to Gale if we don't include them. But you know, as part of your proposal or part of the options that we start looking at, I want them included in the potential move as well.
Look at.
Well, they're east of Route 1. If we're going, and I know your initial is east of 95, which is cool. But if we start talking about east of Route 1 at all, we need to include everything east of Route 1 that does that.
Well, we can
Is
talk
there room
about.
at Falmouth for everything east
I
of
don't
Route
know.
1? I mean, that's something we'd have to look at. I do, and I know I mentioned this before, but England Run Point was originally intended to go to Falmouth. Because of the renovation and the fact that there wasn't room when Falmouth moved up to Stafford Middle, they were sent down to Ferry Farms, recognizing that was a hardship, because they're passing, not only they're passing Falmouth, they're passing Grafton and Conway. I mean, Ferry Farms is as far out as you can get, you know, here.
That was a
So,
decision made in 2011 when we were doing the rebuilds and the rezones.
yeah, it was a long time ago.
And if we're opening this up, I think it'd be wise to include then in this discussion is going ahead and taking a look at that town and country area. I don't know what APU it is, that currently go to Conway, to go ahead and get them to Ferry Farm now. The intention was to hold them off until Ferry Farm's rebuilt and then move them over, but if we're doing it now and we're potentially creating some capacity there at Ferry Farm, we might as well go ahead and do it now and prepare Conway for the continuous build that's going on at Leland Station.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got where you're coming from, Mr. Hirons. I don't agree with it. My course of action here and I'm going to ask for is APU 188. You know, we can sit here all night throwing other APUs in and get it so messy that nothing happens. I got it, but that's not what I want to do. So I'm asking the board to direct staff to come back with APU 188. Those kids that are west of 95 come back in October. They've
I'd
already
say before that.
or before that, to come back with that option, and take it from there.
We can also do a work session to look at the broader if we want to, but I would say let's do that in August, early September, because
Right.
the more notice possible. I know the concern is length. I believe the board asked, I had my list of what we asked for last time, how our bus routes were. I don't know if anybody gathered that information or if that was accomplished. That was one of the work items we had.
Yeah, so the bus routes for everything or just Ferry Farm?
No, just for
Just these
APU
45
188,
kids.
I believe.
Just for APU 188.
That was one of our work
Yeah, the
tasks.
kids are getting to school anywhere from 8, I think, what was it, 8:50?
We're close to 8:50, 8:53 in that area, and then they go into the cafeteria for their
They
breakfast.
go into lunch, and then,
And then in the afternoon, I will tell you, the main concern is truthfully when we have the sub bus drivers.
That's a concern with any
That's-
school
that's-
when they
yeah.
have set by treasurers. Pam, do you have the exact numbers, how long they're on the bus?
Yes, and Barbara Lancaster is here from transportation.
That was Barbara.
That would be great.
It's an average, I think, of 22 minutes,
Yeah, I thought it was somewhere near 22
and
minutes.
that's the past 2 months.
So,
22 minutes?
yeah, I couldn't drive that in 22 minutes either. Maybe at like,
It's the tracking on the GPS
mhm.
system.
Is that actual time, or is that, you know, like if you plug in where you're going to and where you're coming from, it says 22 minutes?
From the first stop at the most main until they got to school for that run.
And is that an average, or over what period of time?
It went from 2 months.
Mm.
February 1st until
Wow.
March.
in February is when we changed the bus routes because it was significantly longer
Right.
before that.
Was there a reason why we couldn't start those buses a little earlier so they get there before 8:53?
It's basically one bus that you're talking about,
Right.
and
Right, well,
It's one bus. They actually
Right.
dropped 32 students off at one bus stop.
but couldn't that bus pick them up earlier so they could get there earlier? I mean, that's part of the problem, is that these students are losing out because, you know, they're losing instructional time, and
bus 287 in the morning arrives at Gale Middle School at 7:54, and that's the prior route. And then their first stop on the Falmouth Elementary School route is at approximately 8:27, and it's at 594 Warrenton Road.
well, you said the Falmouth Elementary.
She went Ferry Farm.
Oh, fair, okay.
So we pick students up on
It's getting
Warrenton
late.
Road, and then they move back into the England Point.
So they
area.
pick them up at 8:27.
The first stop but it's at the, they have to go up and turn around, and the first stop is on
move down towards.
So
Oh, I can see why they're not getting there till
They have a second stop
8:53.
at Warrenton, then they head over to the England Point. So we have 3 stops on that bus route.
And it's a total
Wow.
it's a total of about 7 miles in the afternoon and about 8 miles in the morning.
We have a copy of each day of the bus route.
Yeah, well,
Morning routes are
ideally, we
8
could get that bus to pick up the
7 miles.
children earlier and get them to Ferry Farms earlier. That ought to be something we ought to be looking at for next year.
We can talk to certainly Mr. Suddeth about that. In addition, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's your younger children that are taking longer
Yeah,
to get to the
'cause
classroom. It's not
It's
great.
not the whole. It's not the whole busload. It's not all 42 students. It's the younger students who we actually at the beginning of the year we were doing grab and go breakfast, and after we reviewed it with our teachers, our primary teachers were requesting that our students could eat in the cafeteria because when they were doing grab and go breakfast into the classroom, they were eating until about 9:30. So we were looking at how can we decrease the amount of time. Well, with us keeping them in the cafeteria, at 9:15, their instructional day is beginning. Not sitting in the classroom until 9:30, still eating. And it's just that's just our kindergarten and first grade students. All other students do grab and go straight to their classroom.
Ms. 15 minutes a day.
I know this morning breakfast is an issue. At Hampton Oaks Elementary School, they have 60% that are free and reduced, and most of those students do the breakfast, and they do the grab and go, and it seems to be working quite well for them. And I know with little people, sometimes it takes them a little bit longer to eat. But I like Ms. Healy's idea of perhaps of us being able to pick them up a little bit earlier so they can get there in a more timely manner. It's important that they have that nutrition in the morning, very important.
So we put that also as a suggestion to our transportation folks who are very much aware of this issue, but that does not negate us looking at it, but whatever we can do too, for at least a year, but I'm glad that the board will be willing to look at it come August, September. I think we should do a work session before we bring the item to us, but I will go with the will of the board as early as possible.
I like August because once September hits, it's like hurricane time.
That would be my preference. I'm the one who threw August out.
So just to close, I got it. I've been hearing these concerns from the community for the last 4 years now. Once Falmouth Elementary was finished, I asked to have the kids move back because of the concerns from the community and the teachers and the principals. And they said, no, we can't do that at this time. So then we fixed the bus route, and I'm still getting issues from the community. So what I'm telling you, board, is this is about the kids. It's about 45 kids that we're talking about, not free and reduced. We're not talking about, we're not doing a jig. We're talking about 45 kids that need a better solution from us. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to 13.04 about network cabling infrastructure at Hampton Oaks and Winding Creek. Any questions for staff on this one?
Is that an increase in bandwidth?
I was just.
That's expensive bandwidth too. So let me ask you something while we're on this, just real quick. So, hey, Dave, remember Rocky Run lost all their elementary lost all their email data, the teachers, all the saved data.
Park Ridge.
Park Ridge. I'm sorry,
It was
Park Ridge Elementary.
Park Ridge.
So we're not having that happen anymore, are we?
No. This is, that was a different, separate issue. That was server-based stuff.
Right.
This is actually the cabling that
Okay, I don't care about the
carries
cable. It's
signal.
not going to happen again, right?
No, sir.
Okay, thanks.
This is just an aside, but it's hard to believe we're talking about Hampton Oaks and Winding Creek is obsolete when I still remember when those schools were built. It's like, well.
I wasn't around in
Obsolescence comes
1930.
along
We weren't
fast.
here.
Hey,
I remember
experience
as well,
has
Ms.
its
Healy.
values, Mr. McOsker.
All right, moving on to 13.05, approve the adoption and purchase of textbooks. Any questions for, I assume, Dr. Quinn?
Dr. Duffy, too.
Oh, sorry, yes, Dr.
That's
Duffy,
all right.
sorry. All right,
hearing.
Wait, just a second. I did have one question, Karen, if you don't mind. Dr. Duffy. Every time I say Dr. Duffy, I think of her husband. He and I taught together for years. Well, Karen and I did as well, so. Are most of these classroom sets, okay, and these, the classroom sets that are going into the art classrooms?
Right.
I notice that some of them don't seem to be classroom sets, they're small amounts. Is that just reflective of how many students actually participate in that type of an art class?
In the electives, are you talking about, Mrs. Kidby, or the general
Yeah,
art?
like the experience clay, well, no, not
Right.
that one. The Discovering Art History, you only have 10 books, they're very expensive books, but there's only 10 books, and it's over $1,000 for
Right.
10 books.
Right, those are all based on, those electives are much smaller.
Okay,
So.
okay. And is the expense so high because of the nature of the book, or the fact that we're only ordering 10?
The art books are expensive. Oh, the 10 there, that's a teacher edition, that's a teacher
okay,
resource.
okay.
Those are just that's just going to the teachers.
Okay, got it.
And then the Gardner's book is expensive. It's a beautiful book.
Yeah.
It's
Paid
a classic.
$150 for a paperback.
And
There's
it's
two of them, $150 each
I
for
know.
college courses.
It's pricey.
Yeah, I know.
It's
They're
a
Have you ever
beautiful
seen?
book.
Have you ever seen
My
the cars
daughter
these
didn't
guys
even
roll
crack
up
it
in?
open,
These
and
guys
we
roll
paid
up in
100.
Mercedes, and they're wearing more fancier shoes than I got on. Are you kidding me?
And I might make one other mention. I know
Sure.
some of these, particularly these art history books, are just spectacular books. So when we no longer need them and they get recycled, can I sign up somewhere to buy one?
Well, they get sold first. So if they have value on the used market, we sell them first.
I'll buy one.
But yes, you don't have to buy it.
Thank you.
If it has no value.
Yes, she
you
does.
can
She
have
has to buy it.
Yes, I do.
She's pressuring you for a free book, and that's against rules.
Yeah, I can't do that, but I would. I know they're absolutely
They are
spectacular.
gorgeous.
Thank you, Dr. Duff.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Any other? Okay. Moving on to 13.06, approve summer school program proposal for 2016. Good. I think you have the same one. Let's see, who is taking this one? Dr. Quinn. Dr. Quinn. You probably have the same question I do. Ms. Hagan, you go.
I brought this question up last year to Dr. White, and it was regarding payment of the summer school programs. And we were going to address it this year.
I remember that, yeah.
We were going to address it this year so that families could put it on their credit card and not have to worry about throwing cash down on the table to sign their children up for summer school.
We can do that, Ms. Egan. I spoke with both principals, Tom Nichols and Scott McClellan, and they'll bring out their little swipe.
Yes.
And we'll be able to do that.
Good. Thank you. Perfect.
Mr. McOsker, did you notice the error in the money amount there?
You know what? I wasn't going to ask that, but now that you brought it
Hey,
up,
don't.
why does it say $600,000 on there? What is that 600 grand really?
That was by a beautiful mind that probably did that.
Is that
And
6
there's-
million?
No. One too
What-
many zeros
so
to,
what
the,
is it?
to the left of the
So what is
comma.
it, 600,000?
600, sir.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you can fix it right now? So what's new and what's old? What's going on?
Okay, that is the question I've been waiting for. Thank you, sir. So in our middle school program, we're very excited about promoting C5W, All Sensory Skills. In the past, and I think Ms. Healy has asked about this several different times. In middle school, we are really moving away from a punitive program where we're saying, okay, you have to take summer school in order to be promoted. We really want to identify students who we can engage in the learning, get them involved in project-based learning, and do some really fun things in terms of personalizing and customizing learning using technology and a blended approach. So we're very excited about that being different. Also, our 8th graders, instead of keeping them in middle school, we're going to send them up to the high school, to the 5 high schools, to have a program for them, High Risers program, sort of an accelerated program where we bring them in for 20, 25 hours and accelerate them into their math and their history and science and social studies, kind of give them a taste of that. There'll be the academic part of that in terms of giving them a jump start, but also the project-based learning part, and also the typical kind of things that you would want to do with students to orient them toward the high school experience. Also, a couple differences in high school. I've already alluded to that. We have actually, the main branch will be Brook Point High School, where we'll have traditional classes, just like we have during the school year. And we are always faced with the, because our summer school program is cost neutral, we're always faced with having to have 12 to 15 students for a class to make. And one of the things we learned last year, actually Tammy Howe, who was the lead last year, came up with the idea of taking students where classes didn't make and offering them our Edgenuity virtual classes. So from that, we kind of developed a model and working with these principals to come up with this idea of also having concurrently a virtual classrooms. We're in a computer lab, which would be a flex model, where we would have students taking a lot of different classes under the facilitation and support of certified teachers. So we would have both of those available at Brook Point for the whole district, okay? And then also at North Stafford, we would just have the virtual component there and a lab or two there. And for not just for North Stafford students, but whoever would be, that would be convenient, since they have to provide their own transportation once they get to high school. So those are the highlights of what would be different from what we've ever done before, and we think we'll be very impressed with the results.
Ms. Kidby?
A couple questions, Dr. Quinn. You indicated that the High Riser program will be offered for selected rising ninth graders. Can you talk to us a little bit about that selection process?
Well, it'll be a criteria that we set up based on academics and just their track record in middle school and identifying them in terms of success in high school. So it will be students who would benefit from that.
So these are students that maybe need that little extra time in order to
There you go.
To assure, maybe not assure, but at least help them be successful in high school. The other question I had, the North Stafford virtual program, is that still the NovaNet program? Is that what they're going to be using?
Actually, we have a program, our vendor now is Edgenuity.
Okay.
That's really more authentic, and we found, just in terms of comparison, it more engages the students more, has more video streaming, the assessments are more targeted, so we're very excited about this program.
That program, but the design of that program and the use of that virtual program is for students that need another opportunity to pass, say, an English 11 or an English 10 class.
Yes, ma'am. We call that a credit recovery approach,
okay.
And we're offering that, but also we're offering new credit for virtual as well in both sites.
They just want to get extra credit or graduate early, that kind of thing?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions, thank you.
I have one, but any other board members? I guess my only comment is, and I'm not, you don't have to respond, or just something to think about. My only concern, and I know that we value the virtual and that, but if it is a child that is needing remedial, it is very concerning for me that we may be pushing them to a virtual class, especially for math. Well, it can go both ways, and there's just for some students, the need is to have a teacher, and if it's a remedial, I'm just putting it out as a comment.
We will have adequate support in those computer labs, not just one facilitator, but actually certified teachers in the core content areas.
Now,
there were some issues last summer regarding that issue.
It's a good comment overall. Mr. Hirons brought it up earlier about the virtual program, not just to take a good look at it and see how successful it is, but there are classes that lend themselves to virtual, asynchronous? Virtual asynchronous, instruction, and then, like maybe Calculus 2 is not, or Latin 4 is not, so anyway.
Point well taken, and I think we got a pretty nice hybrid where we will offer traditional classes also.
And I understand your point of view, but my experience has been sometimes the students that struggle in a traditional classroom because of distractions and other things know that they've got 6 weeks to get through English 10 in a virtual environment with a teacher right beside them if they need the support, and it's just them and the curriculum. Sometimes that's the answer for them. That's the very answer they need.
I'm just responding to a couple constituent comments. Thank you, Dr. Quinn. Moving on to, sorry, I got myself lost here. I believe we're now to easements. Sorry, 1307, a Dominion Virginia Power, right-of-way, excuse me.
Okay, I'm going to earn my salary
There you go.
tonight.
There you go.
If you look at paragraph 4 in this easement, the last sentence, this, of course, is traditionally these easements give the grantee, which would be Dominion Power, the right to keep the easement clear and trim trees and bushes, et cetera, which is fine. But it says all trees and limbs cut by the grantee, which is Dominion Power, shall remain the property of grantor, which would be Stafford County and Stafford County School Board. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but if they're going to cut a limb or cut a tree, I don't think the school board has a use for it. So if it's ours, then we're going to have to pay to get it removed, or if there's any liability, we're going to be responsible. So I would suggest, if we go with this easement, that we take that sentence out, or say shall be the responsibility of the grantee. I mean, if they remain our property, we're going to have to pay to haul it away. And just a minor thing, but on the plat, it's got an incorrect zip code for the parcel. I actually didn't have time to look this up in the land records, and this property is owned by both Stafford County and the school board? We have shared title to it?
Yes, you do.
Okay, I'll check that deed out before we come back, but on the plat, it says zip code 2255, and it's got to be a different zip code because it's Fredericksburg, Virginia, and that zip code didn't have the 5 digits, so you can just take a look at that.
I've got the plat.
Because we have to initial it, we should make sure it's
Now,
correct.
back to the trees.
Yes, and
we're-
limbs.
Limbs. This is a boring project, so there won't be anything cut on that property.
Right, but this is for the future. This is an easement in perpetuity.
We'll get a letter written to the school board stating what you just said.
Well, why don't we just take it out of the easement agreement?
Just with the number of easements we have, making small changes to each easement
Well,
for
this is-
every customer.
But this is a significant change. I mean, a letter isn't going to do it. This is going to get recorded, and this is going to be in the land record. So I don't think that a letter agreement, things get lost or things change. I mean, I don't know why, unless, I mean, if we were farmers and wanted to use the logs for fences or firewood or something, that would be different, but there's no need. Or maybe if the county wants it, we can say it can be theirs.
The poles are staying, right? So
The poles that are already on the project are staying. There's one last pole, but there are some trees down at the end of the road. I wouldn't call them trees per se. They're real
Limbs.
thin.
Okay, I'm not going to be here, forever in the future, and somebody else is going to be here, and I just don't want somebody to say, why'd you sign something that says the limbs and trees are going to be your responsibility when you don't have any need for them, and it's just going to cost to haul them away. You all aren't going to be at Dominion. Whoever signs that letter may not be at Dominion at some point in the future. So this is just to protect the school board from potential, expense or possible liability. It's a simple thing. You strike it out and you initial it and you're done.
That's the first time I've been asked that question. Normally, they just say, we don't want you to cut the trees. So I'll have to get with Dominion higher-ups and find out if we can change that in the easement.
Well, I understand. I mean, I prefer not to cut trees, but if you need to do it to keep it clear, that's part of why you have the easement. So,
Now, are these the trees in the future, like if we were going
yes.
down the road, tree trimming?
Yeah, it's at the very end of the road.
Because the
Everything's
pole
clear.
ownership would be turned over to,
But their poles are staying up.
right.
Bring us back information coordinating with probably Mr. Haran of where we want to go, but I think we've clearly stated that it
Yeah.
seems to be an issue for us, so
Don't,
Okay.
and
Work through
don't
it.
think of it as trees down the road. Think of it in 200 years, the 9 million trees that are there. That,
Okay, we can see about modifying the easement.
Is that the only concern?
Just taking that one line out, initial it, and it's done.
bring back more information. This is an information item, and we'll,
Well, no, we just don't
whatever
sign
you all
it.
can bring back
I
for
mean,
us.
this is something you're asking us to give you at no cost. So it's our choice to grant it or not grant it,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Sure,
It
it
sure
is
is.
voluntary.
Okay, thanks.
So we'll await more information before next
Thank
meeting.
you.
Thank you. 13.08, approve the 2016-17 Stafford Head Start and Early Head Start refunding, application. Come on forward, Ms. Massey.
poor Miss Massey had to sit here all day.
Oh, sorry.
That's right, I learned a lot here.
This is like application and grant night, so.
These are the goals that we have these are the goals that we have in this packet for you to all to approve as well. Improving the quality of facilities, of course, increasing our student success in kindergarten, and then improving the quality of our program compliance with Head Start regulations, which includes training. Some information for you guys on, for you gentlemen and ladies, on the student demographics that we served last year. And the health services that our students received. If you notice, overweight and asthma continue to be issues that we are addressing. And then, of course, the dental and mental health referrals that we make. We are making great strides in our social emotional skills for our children, measured by the DECA, with concerns turning to typical and typicals turning to strengths for our children in the areas of attachment and initiative and self-control. Again, some statistics on the families we served last year and our Head Start, early Head Start parents that were in high school that are entering college and graduating as well. We are measuring our family outcomes in all of these areas to align with the Head Start Family Outcomes Framework. And 100% of our families signed agreements setting family goals last year, with a large percentage either accomplishing or making significant progress on their goals, which usually include education or better jobs or those kinds of things. Our children continue to make excellent gains while they're in our Head Start program, far surpassing with the yellow bands would be the PALS. In between the yellow bands would be where we would expect children to be when they finish a pre-K year. And you can see our children are finishing at the very top of that or above, well above. And then when our students go on to kindergarten, 93% of them this fall passed the PALS kindergarten assessment, as opposed to 86% of the kindergarten students. And that's with 20% having IEPs and 30% being English language learners. Again, in your packet, I'm supposed to do board training for you all. In your packet, you have the program governance plan, and in that you have the Appendix A with the responsibilities of the school board and the policy council. And then we have an internal dispute resolution between policy council and the school board as well in that packet. And if I encourage you to go to the Head Start website. There are all kinds of information on that website about our policies and procedures and regulations, as well as information for the child care community on how to work with children and families. A couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention. Normally at this time, I don't just bring you the refunding application, but I bring you the COLA if they're giving us a COLA increase. They have not given us that amount yet, so I could not combine them. So in the refunding application, instead of the full 3%, I've put 1.4% because we're going to be getting about a 1.6 or 1.7% COLA. So the rest of the salary I will be putting in a separate application, which I will be bringing before the board for the COLA. And then this year, we're very excited. The president had put in his budget, and Congress approved it the Senate and Congress approved it for us to get some significant funding in order to increase our school year from 160 to 180 days. So that's going to cost us about $150,000 to be able to do that. And I've already worked those numbers out. And as soon as that grant hits the street, we'll be working for that, because it is one of the goals, has been one of the goals of our program for several years, to expand to the full school year. And parents have been asking for that for a number of years. And then there will be an opportunity for early Head Start expansion as well this year, if it so pleases the board. And I wanted to share with you a little bit of the PowerPoint presentation that some of our teachers did at the Head Start conference, the state conference, which was held in Fredericksburg this year, last week. And they call themselves Team Nice in this classroom, and they are doing a lot of collaborative learning. This workshop that we presented was actually on C5W and All Century Skills Learning. These children made their own large blocks and thoroughly enjoyed playing with them for months. They also were doing a building project when we were doing our homes unit, and a part of that building project was talking about why do we wear hard hats. So they did lots of science experiments with cowboy hats and other kinds of hats. And they decided, as you can see from the egg, that the cowboy hat doesn't work as well as a construction hat. And then as part of their work, they presented a museum walk. They had to work with their partners and build a building from a plan. They actually had to have a plan and work out their plan first. And then they had to have a foundation. They learned the importance of foundations. And then they had to present it to the public. And so adults walked around while they gave their presentations. And then there was a ball study, a career, and a clothing study, and Dr. Benson came and read to us for the career study. And then they did a sewing project where they made their own stuffed animal. Are there any questions about the refunding application?
We always like when Kathy comes and shows us our pictures.
Makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Massey, you are an institution. You are absolutely amazing. And when you said you'll have that grant ready, it'll probably be the minute after it hits the street.
I've already got it waiting.
Mrs.
I'm just waiting for them to release it.
Gets compliments every time the federal government comes in and does a review of our program. They just rave about you and the program and the work that you do here.
We're
you
very,
very lucky to have you in Stafford.
Oh, thank you.
We
just finished 2 federal reviews in 1 week. Actually, it was 2 weeks ago. And they came and did a class review where they scored our classroom instruction with a tool that actually gives a numerical score. And then they did, because they can't do that in Early Head Start, they did a school readiness review in Early Head Start. I haven't got my class scores back yet, but the Early Head Start, they raved about our program and what an exemplary program it was. So I'm looking forward to when that report comes back to us. So thank you.
Make sure, Dr. Benson, will you make sure that we...
I will make sure you get that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Massey? All right.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 1309, approve the career and technical education local plan and budget for 2016-17. I know that'll be probably Dr. Quinn and Ms. Robinson. I did get a preview of it last night at our CTE advisory committee meeting.
Hello again. In this plan, as it says in the agenda item, is a requirement for us to submit a local plan, a CTE local plan, in order to secure the Carl Perkins funding. In this case, we're talking about $235,000, which is about $4,000 less than what we've received previously. And it's kind of interesting, the citizen comment tonight about what we're doing to prepare our students for the workforce. This particular application really addresses that in terms of really putting an emphasis on giving our students industry and business career experiences. You'll see in some of the narrative that we're partnering with the Regional Chamber of Commerce to provide mock interviews for our students, as well as career readiness workshops, and also expanding technology in our CTE programs through robotics and some of what was shared previously with the geospatial and the cyber networking. I got that wrong, right? Cybersecurity. And then also with the budget itself, of course, we're having to, because of our auto programs with the NATEF, having some of their accreditation, we have allocated some funding toward securing that accreditation, and also professional development for our teachers, and about half of it is for equipment. So that's kind of a summary of this application, and do you have any questions?
Ms. Kidby?
I noticed that the federal funding, which is what this grant is $234,000, right?
Yes,
is that what
ma'am.
it is? And we match that, or more than match that, with local funding, right?
Absolutely.
A little over $400,000. I noticed also there were a couple programs that I didn't know what they were, and they sound very interesting. Vex Robotics. It said that you're going to pilot that in a middle school. Which middle school is going to be piloting that?
That would be Ms. Robinson. She has some specifics on that.
We were able to purchase the Vex Robotics. I believe it was A.G. Wright Middle School, it was Gale Middle School, and H.H. Poole this year. They have them and are piloting them, and hopefully we will be able to expand that next year.
And I noticed in the write-up here that it talks about the geospatial technology, and that's going to be at Stafford High School if approved.
If approved for the 17-18th, but we have to start working on it next year. Yes.
Okay, so the funding in here for that is in preparation?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Quinn. All right, moving on to 13.10, approval of an award of contract for copier services to Rico Americas of Chicago. Information item. Mr. Wolf, any questions, board members, I guess, or would you like to give an introduction?
I just thought I'd like to give a little bit of a summary. Ms. Chair, Ms. Vice Chair, school board members, Dr. Benson. Basically, the first thing that everyone needs to realize is our current copier contract expires June 30th. However, tonight, this is an information item. We are not requesting that you take action on it. And in light of the speaker's comments, what I would like to do is come back and provide you with a summary of the process we used and a summary of the cost analysis. However, I would also just like to emphasize some of the important aspects of what was done. We used a procurement process that was request for proposals. We received 5 proposals from potential vendors. They were all evaluated by an evaluation committee that was put together before the document was put on the street. So we had who was going to be doing that. We knew what our evaluation criteria was. That was included in the request for proposal as well. Some of the things that criteria would include would be the responsiveness of the proposal itself, the quality of services to be provided, which in this case would include repair and maintenance of the copy machines themselves. It would also be the copier product viability. By that I mean the capabilities and features and its ability to meet certain minimum specifications based on utilization, which would be copies, numbers of copies. We also would have looked at the cost of the services, and we would have also looked at what I refer to as viability of the company, which is really the experience of the staff or the company to deliver the services, and as well their financial health, their ability to stay in business and for us to maintain a long-term relationship with them. So I don't have anything for you tonight, but I wanted to provide this information and let you know that we were going to bring it forward for the next meeting, which will be on the 26th.
Before, any other questions, or Ms. Kibbe? Oh, sorry.
I think it might be helpful if some of that information could be brought to the next FAB meeting, and perhaps the FAB committee could look at it in a little more depth and have that background prior to it coming forth for action. That's possible.
We can do that.
That'd be great.
Ms. Gill. Sorry.
I wasn't aware that the contracting criteria allowed you to look at the financial health of a company. Is that something that's written into the regulations?
Well, it's usually proprietary information, but we do try to look at other means, trying to make sure that, you know, the company is going to stay in business. For some of these companies, Xerox and Ricoh, we know they're viable companies. They've been in business a while, and in the case of Ricoh, we know that there hasn't been any issues there. But we do have a responsibility to make sure that whoever we engage, you know, and look to contract with, that on behalf of the school division, that we're entering into a commitment that is going to fulfill our needs and requirements over the term of the contract. And I failed to mention that this was not only for fiscal year 2017, but also has 3 one-year period renewals, which would also, if we did that, would take us through to fiscal year 2020. So you also have a responsibility to look at the costs over the potential full term as well, which was done. So we'll have a summary of the process and our cost analysis when we convene with the FAB committee, and that will be brought forward at the next school board meeting as well.
Go ahead.
Mr. Wolf, you also mentioned that you consider the experience of the staff with the companies and their services they're providing. If we haven't done business with a company, why would we?
We usually ask them for some of their top personnel to provide a bio and some information about their staff in terms of years of experience and things like that.
Is that standard in is this standard requirement for them when they submit a proposal?
I think we typically try to look at those things, but all the specific criteria that were used, I don't have them all listed right now. I was just giving you an idea of some of the things that we tend to look at, just generally speaking, with requests for proposals. But I think the criteria used in this instance would have been geared specifically to copier machines, and we will provide that information as well.
So we'll have additional information at our next meeting and at the
Before
FAB.
you act, yes.
Yes, thank you very much. All right.
And it will be reviewed by the FAB ahead of time.
All right, moving on to 1311, review the 2016-17 annual plan for special education. I know that should be Dr. Clark.
And quickly, another welcome, Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
Vice Chair, school board members, and Dr. Benson. For information this evening, you have our special education annual plan, which you know is our application for federal funds that flows through the state, also known as our Title 6B grant. I would like to quickly highlight 5 key areas of the plan. Not much has changed, if anything, not even the amount of revenue, unfortunately. But the plan does certify that we have local policies and procedures that are current and ensures compliance with federal laws such as the IDEA, No Child Left Behind, the McKinney-Vento Homeless Act, and the Virginia State Special Education Regulations. Specifically, we must identify our local spending and confirm our class sizes, ratios, etc. Those are all assurance statements throughout. The plan also indicates how we will use the approximately $4.4 million that we are expected to receive. And as in the past, we use those funds to partially fund our learning disabilities teachers, diagnosticians, and department leads at the high school. Again, partial funding. The grant includes our request and justification for about $85,600 in preschool funding for our 2 to 5-year-olds. Unfortunately, there is no increase in this funding either. And finally, the plan, as required, was shared with our Special Education Advisory Committee, reviewed on March 15. So it'll be back to you for approval. About the same amount of money, maybe a few $1,000s more than last year.
Any questions? Ms. Egan?
I just have a quick question. Did we get anything more from the state? I know that they were talking about funding a little bit more of the special education programs.
Very little.
Very little.
Yeah, there's been no big effort. The regulations have not been reauthorized. There's just no movement whatsoever for any additional federal funds in special education, or really not in any other areas either.
Right.
We'll see what happens with the Every Child Succeeds Act and how that aligns with IDEA, but funding probably will be a moot point, I think.
Thanks, Dr. Clark.
Ms. Goodby?
Yes, I just have a quick question. Maybe I'm looking at this agenda item wrong, but I see an attachment that's 4 pages that talks about $85,000. And that's it.
That's it? Then you
That's it.
don't have the full attachment.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Sorry about that. That you only, I think,
Yeah.
I don't see what you see, but that 85 would be referring to preschool.
Yeah, it's just preschool and the materials and supplies for preschool. That's all we got in this attachment.
I'll make sure that that's corrected tomorrow. I'm not sure what happened
I would
there.
appreciate that.
Oh.
I know that it's a lengthy
Yeah,
document.
it's not as long
and-
as it used to be, but it is at least 16 pages.
Yeah, if we could get the rest of the document, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Certainly will get that to you tomorrow. Is that it? Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to 13, adopt school board resolutions for FY16 year-end closeout authorizations and funds appropriation.
Madam Chair, I think you missed 1312.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll ensure the students at Stafford High School are aware of that.
We're just going to skip
No,
over
I
that
wasn't.
tonight.
Hand out our cell number.
They're all asleep now anyway.
I looked at. So, sorry, going back to 13.
Those Mountain View parents.
Yeah.
1312, approve the adoption of the current and remaining 2015-16 hours of instruction at each grade level and Stafford High School as described by ticker chart 2. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, we're wanting to go ahead and ask if Stafford High School can't get back on their regular schedule effective the 25th. We'll tell you that there's some additional found time as a result of the going back on a full day for March the 25th and May the 27th. That will add some additional hours to the balance of time for Stafford High School that'll bring them up. And in the meantime, from 991, it'll bring up some additional hours from this. So that's a good thing. I mean, that helps us with their balance a little bit. But we've also got some high school principals that are asking about getting a full early release schedule during the week of exams. I know I'm working with Dr. Quinn now on an exam schedule. But so our main effort tonight is to get Stafford High School back into a regular schedule, and if we could do that, that would be very helpful. And we will also have some additional found time to basically consider a full early release schedule for exams with the bank time and then the additional found time from those early release, that would be much appreciated.
So that will come as a separate agenda item in the future?
It would, or
Possible.
we'll work that out on the school board weekly update for you with the exact time.
All right.
Would the representatives have any
I was going
Yeah.
to.
desire to move
Who
this
would
to
like to
action?
move to action?
Well, I have a question first.
Yeah, let's get there first.
Has Mr. Lewis provided input on this?
He
Is
has,
able
he's
to-
very excited about
Okay,
this,
good.
extremely excited about the possibility.
Is there any, has he developed any effect on what's going to change? I know when we added the 10 minutes, he was able to add a little bit of time to lunch, which was helpful as students were figuring out the lunch lines and everything. They probably figured it out, and it's probably.
Frankly, I trust that he has a plan. I did not ask for details in that regard, but I do trust that he's, based on his reaction with my phone call and his conversation with me about being excited and looking forward to it, that he does have a confidence.
I have one question too. So, thank you all, Bruce and staff. I know I kind of mentioned this last week, and I know Mr. Hirons and I have been talking about this for a while. So I'm glad you guys got it here. I'm glad it's done. And with that, you want to move to action?
Move 1312 to action.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded regarding moving item 1312 to action. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This item has been moved to action. Is there a motion?
Move to approve 1312.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded regarding moving this to action. Any further discussion?
And that giant cheer you just heard from South Stafford.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on now to 1313, adopting school board resolutions for 2016 closeout and authorizations and funds appropriation, all the fun stuff.
I'll go through it again.
Right.
Ms. Chair, Ms. Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Fellow school board members and Dr. Benson. Staff is currently working on putting together our heads and making calculations to derive what our best estimate of the fiscal year 2016 salary and benefits lapse amount and the non-payroll related amounts that we believe would be available. It's a detailed effort, so I don't know that by the time the next FAB meeting that we're actually going to have it final. It's going to be like we're going to be up against the gun trying to get that number for you so that you have it before the next school board meeting, but we believe we should have that, and if we're closer to being finished and we feel like we have at least a pretty good range of a number, we can share that with the FAB as well. So there is no intent to proceed on these resolutions without being able to provide you with not only what we believe to be the estimated savings, but as sources and then as uses through Dr. Benson, what staff would recommend as the best and highest use of those funds.
Ms. Healy.
I appreciate that, Mr. Wolf, and I would like, when this comes back, to have more detail in here.
Sure.
Given the fact that we are going to proceed with the audit, the forensic audit. The interim audit will be released tomorrow. I think we need to make sure that we don't have any blanket, and this is not a reflection at all on you, Dr. Benson, but I think the school board needs to take responsibility and, not have any blanket authorizations to allocate unknown sums of money to expenditure initiatives. So, if this comes to the FAB, I'm comfortable with that, but I don't think it's something that we should be considering at this time.
I think there's agreement there. So moving on to 1314, adoption of the school board's budget. I believe, as it says, we are awaiting the amount from our funding body, so there has been no change. So that's a stay tuned item. In case we had information, we had these on as placeholders so that in case there was any additional information.
Madam Chairman, I did have a question. I brought my budget papers, and I don't need this answer tonight, but I would like to get some more information on it. These expenditures are pretty detailed and self-explanatory, but there is one here for position reclassifications and adjustment to address backlog of positions with internal pay inequity. And that amount is $143,852, which is not a substantial sum in light of the pay inequities that we have across the board, but it is a substantial sum of money. So I would like to get information on specifically what those adjustments are and, what this backlog is, because I do not want it to appear that we're giving priority to a certain group of people that has not been, discussed with the school board. So if we could just get that before the budget comes back, I'd appreciate it.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, announcing the next board meeting will be April 26th at 6 o'clock, probably with the work session prior. Thank you, Madam Clerk. With our 7 o'clock meeting, please stay tuned with your emails regarding that meeting as we get more information on them. Then we are adjourned.
All righty.
Thank you, everybody.